Hello? Can you guys just let me know when you're here, if you get here? Just because it looks like they took down the entire goddamn thing, which is not what they normally do. So I started a new stream. Let me take a look. Oh. Everyone started a new stream. Let's see when people get here. Yeah, so I think Jubilee got me, but not only did they get me, they nuked the entire thing. So basically, I think what I'm gonna have to do. You weren't following the warnings, Connor? Well, I mean, the only warnings I got were in chat. I didn't get any warnings from YouTube. Even on YouTube, basically they took down the entire stream, which is not what normally happens. What normally happens is they black out the screen. And when they black out the screen, that fucking it basically you have to wait like 5 minutes. And then once you wait 5 minutes, you're capable of, basically like the screen will go unblack. And as a result, it will reset. So that sucks. That fucking sucks. I think that in order to do Jubilee content going forward, like whenever we have good Jubilee content, somebody was saying like, record it, invert it, make it small, throw a filter over it. So I might straight up, like, I might just not be able to react to Jubilee shit anymore, which fucking sucks. I don't think they're unfairly protecting Dave Rubin. I think they've always done that. They've always done that. Please look at live chat going forward. Fashion 40, if I could find you and I could grab your flaccid penis and rip it off of your body like a celery stalk and throw it into tall grass, I would do so right now. You don't even fucking know, bitch. Back in the day, when we were on StreamYard, I would be 30 minutes behind or 40 minutes behind. The whole VOD is gone. Yeah. But like it'll get copyright. It'll basically say, hey, you were using somebody else's content. You're receiving like a copyright notification for it, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll be able to appeal it and say it was fire use. How do you know it'll be flaccid? I don't know it'll be flaccid. But anyways, in my ideal scenario, it would be flaccid. If it was hard, that would actually be very alarming. So the point is, the reason why I would do that is I used to be on StreamYard. And what I did is I used to like find a comment that I liked and I thought it was funny. And then I would leave the chat there while chat continued chatting. And then I literally had to open up a second chat to keep up with current chat. But because I loved interacting with old school chat, I would be like 45 minutes to 2 hours behind in chat. So being 5 minutes behind in chat, where I was watching, live chat, and then I bump into the fact that I got copyright struck for 3 to 5 minutes later, that's like lightning, That's like lightning fast in my world. So, anyways. Diminished Darknut says, I love you. Okay, Diminished Darknut, as long as you're still out there looking for your actual gay boyfriend, you are allowed to love me parasocially. But I'm just going to tell you, I'm like 99% straight. The only man I'm gay for is Henry Cavill. So unless you are Henry Cavill on an alt and you're super into Warhammer, we're probably not going to be able to have a gay relationship. I just want to be straight up with you. Now, if you want to be a community member and continue to donate and parasocially love me, then I'm not going to hate on that relationship. But I just want to make sure that you're still pursuing normal gay relationships while still being in love with me. Okay? I think that's fair. Anyways, we already got another few super chats. So let me go ahead and read these super chats. Somebody says, I blame the Greys. Yeah, I wonder if they mass reported. I know that's like conspiracy brain thinking or whatever, but I do wonder if they were like, this guy's watching copyrighted material. This guy's watching copyrighted material. Let me go to my alt. This guy's watching copyrighted material. Because there are gay ops happening. Demon King Drago says they hit you with a privacy strike, which works differently than a DMCA. That's cringe. Real serious with 100 Argentinian. Connor, are you sure you didn't piss off a Groiper, just some friendly ribbing? I mean, it's entirely possible. I have made Groipers mad in the past. I've made Snarkers mad in the past. And now I've made... So, can I be... Should I draw this drawing? I'm going to draw this drawing. I think it's important. It's not drama talking about like sex shit. It's just talking about the gray names who are currently not fans of the community. So let's just do this real quick. So I would say out of the people who hate the community, there are probably 3 major factions. And I think the Groipers and Dissident Right are probably the smallest. Groiper and Dis Right. And then I would say that there's leftists slash snarkers. Because I think the snarkers and leftist thing, they're not always one and the same, but they correlate. Typically, a lot of snarkers have like pretty far left politics. They might be like anti-trans. They might be like trans exclusionary radical feminists, but I still feel like there's a lot of... If you bump into a snarker, they're more likely going to be far left than they are far right. And then DGG. But I want to be sure to articulate the fact that I think it's cultists. And I want to articulate this real quick. For the Groiper and Dissident Right, I'm going to do 2 things. So these are the amount of people who would hate me. 80% of the people... I want to leave that black. I just want the next line to be red. Now, the amount of people who hate me in the Dissident Right is probably 80% of their community would hate me. But I think only a very small percentage of their community ever bothers to come to the channel and fuck with us because we don't cover them enough, right? My dog wants to come in, but I want to finish this drawing. Now, for leftists and snarkers, I also think about 2/3 of leftists and snarkers would hate me. But I think that out of like the people who are capable of hating on us, only like 25% of the population that's available to piss off would ever come and fuck with us, right? And then the whole reason why I'm doing this drawing is because let's say that DGG, I actually think like probably 1/3 of DGG is perfectly chill with me. And they might not agree with my evidence, but they agree with like my general argumentation that Steven is a self-destructive fucking sociopath. And then I think that out of the people, let's say like 1/3 of DGG are effectively like deranged cultists who actually worship everything that, you know, Destiny does. And they can never criticize him ever. I think that we have sufficiently pissed off the cultists that a substantial amount of them will come and fuck with us. So to be clear, when I'm talking shit about DGG, I know that 1/3 of DGG is probably fine with me. They might even agree with me. They just consume Steven's content in spite of his personal issues. And then I think that another 1/3 of DGG just straight up doesn't fucking care. They don't give a shit. You know, they're like, oh yeah, Steven's a bad guy. What else is new? I don't hate Connor, but I don't love Connor either, so he can go fuck himself. Now, I do think maybe 10%, maybe 20% of DGG are actually deranged cultists who truly believe that Steven can do nothing wrong, and therefore they must defend his honor at all times. And I think half of those people have the energy to come fuck with us, right? As like gray names. So I'm just going to put suspected gray name origins. Now my dog is like super barking, so she definitely wants to come in right now. Let me go ahead and play a silly copyrighted song real quick, you know, just so I can risk another copyright ban. And then I'll go get my dog, and then I'll be right back. What is it? Punk rocker, yes, I am. Kind of a chill song. Not my favorite. Not the best one. Not the worst one. Just mute it, turn on closed captions, and read it to chat. That would be a funny transformative use of the Jubilee content. Fashion 40 for 10 says, dude, if you would have looked at live chat, you would have saw that we were trying to tell you, but also I do remember Booby Bear asshole. Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Fashion 40. Thank you for the 10. Appreciate you. Iggy Pop is your Henry Cavill? That's interesting. That's interesting. Please tell Doobie to get off his alt account Symposium. Dude, just fuck it. He's not unbanned. Leave him alone. Everybody leave Doobie alone or I'm gonna fucking kill you, okay? I will come to your fucking house and I will twist your fucking testicles off of your fucking body, rip them off, and throw them into fucking tall grass, okay? Doobie is pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. Doobie is unfortunately pro-Hasan Piker. Doobie is unfortunately somebody who hates Destiny. Doobie has said that he has compiled evidence of potential pedophile abusers within the Discord and that he has turned that over to law enforcement. Doobie has said that in an ideal world, he would interview jihadist terrorists and pedophiles and allow them to interact with a space where they could be understood ideologically as long as they weren't causing harm. None of those things are fucking deal breakers for me. So if you can't fucking exist in a space where somebody who's controversial enjoys the content and gives tons of cash, then fucking give your goddamn balls a tug. You're being a fucking pussy. Like, regardless. If Mr. Girl was in here, I wouldn't be banning Mr. Girl. If Lav was in here, I wouldn't be banning Lav. If Destiny was in here, I would only be banning Destiny if he was being a twat. And I wouldn't even ban him. I would probably give him a 24-hour to chill the fuck out. So can everybody in chat please give your fucking balls a tug and stop being a fucking pussy? Please. Including mods. Symposium for 10 says, Doobie still hidden from chat and therefore blocked from super chats. Also Fell and Drago have thin Johnsons and low IQs. Also GDF videos, please. Okay, we will do GDF videos eventually, just maybe not today. Rifleman for 2 says, Connor making enemies everywhere. True. Symposium says, Officer Nasty's main account is also hidden, by the way. Suppression is haram and kills engagement, which is half the fun of his stream. I thought this was America. True. Thank you for the chip. All right. Everybody, give your balls a tug. All right. Isn't that what you argue about Destiny, though, to be honest? What, being a twat? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Connor has the musical taste of a millennial Florida man. That's absolutely true. That is so true. All right. Anyways, I think, unfortunately, we got gaped on the Jubilee content, unfortunately. So I think that I'm going to need to download and modify that in order to continue to watch that. So unfortunately, I don't want to risk another copyright strike while I'm live. So I'm going to watch something that I know is not copyright struck, which is effectively whether or not Hasan Piker should have been banned from the United Kingdom, and whether or not liberals should, whether or not he should be investigated by the federal government, and then whether or not liberals should go out of their way to defend him. So I'm just going to pretend this is the same. I'm just going to pretend this is the same content. Anyways. I hate things that hurt my balls. Don't do that. You're German. Let's be real. There's like a 50% chance that you're in a fucking BDSM sex dungeon getting hit in your fucking testicles with a paddle right now. Hans. All right, let's go.
The head, or I guess the one who coined the phrase, or maybe he's just the current thought leader in Lockheed liberalism. And then we have one of the hosts of Lib and Learn itself, Soy Pill. And we're going to be talking about something I think that is a lot of people have been discussing is what should the liberal response be to the Trump administration apparently subpoenaing Hassan Piker. What should our stance be on the U.S.'s relationship with countries like Cuba? We're going to be talking about all that and more. But first, I want to give the mic to each of these lovely individuals to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit more about who they are, what their thoughts are on the subject, and we'll get it from there. I'm going to hand the mic first to Mr. Soypill, and then we'll let Bishop introduce himself. So, Soypill, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
On the whole thing. Give
Just
my
tell
intro?
people who you are, what you do, and what are your thoughts on whether we should defend Hassan Piker. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the Soy Pill. I make video essays. I stream sometimes. Going to be ramping that up in the near future. And I think that going after Hassan or kind of ignoring this, turning a blind eye, is part of more of like a partisan, like vindictive, personal thing, which I understand, given the fact that this guy would probably say the same if it was some sort of liberal person being indicted. But that's not an indication of how we should conduct ourselves. It's irrelevant what his behavior is. It's pretty irrelevant to me if he even did break a law here, because what seems obvious to me is this is an administrative crackdown trying to introduce some sort of chilling effect. They're not applying this standard over every single person that was on that convoy. They're not doing it to their own partisan pundits like Nick Shirley, who might have stayed in a sanctioned hotel. This is just an attack to try to silence critics, and you should look at it as a fascist government and an authoritarian move and oppose it regardless of who they're doing it to. Yeah.
Okay, glad to have you. And $10 from Pondering Politics to say, ask Soypill to Steelman Joe's definition of populism. We'll say that for the maybe.
No, Jubilee does not have your money. So it's my understanding that the donated money will be going to the channel pretty much no matter what. The AdSense revenue could hypothetically go to Jubilee, but they basically have to claim it. What I'm expecting is the VOD is going to pop up as a privacy strike, DMCA strike, copyright strike, something like that in the community control panel in my YouTube studio. And then as a result, I will have to go in and challenge them under fair use, basically saying, hey, I'm doing transformative commentary to your original content. Therefore, this stream is mine and I want it. And then they'll have a 10-day window. Like I said, I'm still going to get the super chat money. I'm just fighting over the AdSense revenue. There will be a 10-day window where they can show YouTube. Well, number one, you do an appeal. Then they reject the appeal. Then you do the disagreement with the appeal. Then they have 10 business days to send YouTube proof that they are suing you over the copyrighted material. And if they don't show YouTube proof that they're suing you over the copyrighted material, then you retain the AdSense. That's something that I have to fucking do with Warhammer content all the goddamn time. So it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's just a pain in the ass, and Jubilee are a bunch of fucking pussies. And I can't believe, as people who create, political commentary content, they're so aggressive about copywriting striking people reacting to their content. Literally, commentary on their political commentary is one step removed in the content creation zeitgeist. So the fact that they're so aggressive basically tells me that they're money grubbing sacks of shit. So, anyways, no offense, Jubilee. No offense. Thank you for all the donations so far. Thank you to Envoy Snark for the membership. Thank you, Hippopotaman, for the membership. And thank you, Rifleman, for the $2. My default is to doubt the administration. I agree. But we should actually talk about the legality of doing propaganda for America's rivals and enemies. So, anyways, let's continue with the content.
Maybe the meat of the discussion. But thanks for being here. We're going to get into it as we go. Next up, we're going to give the mic to Mr. Bishop. Go ahead.
Hey everybody, it's Bishop here, self-described Lockheed liberal. I'm a defense contractor by day and a shit poster on Twitter by night. And my take on the Hasan situation is that I believe that a lot of the dialogue around Hasan right now is talking about the illegitimacy of the government and the illegitimacy of, like, obviously in my opinion, a fascist type government and unwieldy use of our institutions. However, I still think that it's very important that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater and just completely discredit any kind of a subpoena put out by federal law enforcement. And I think the point that I think really needs to be argued is that due to the relationship that we have with Cuba and the Cuban government, there is actually a cause for there to be serious scrutiny about political actions and government programs that happen on the island.
Interesting. Okay. And with that, I guess we'll get into it. Can you give us maybe elaborate a little bit more on that serious cause? Do we think that the subpoena may be legitimate? What are your thoughts on that? Go ahead.
I think the question is what is legitimate and what is illegitimate. I believe that now in the year of 2026, what we have across many different legal domains is we have a series of rules, regulations, and laws. And what we wind up having is we wind up having situations where people will break a law and then maybe they'll be pursued and said, okay, well, now we're going to hold you accountable. You did break the law. But the problem is that nobody is prosecuted for that law. And so I think one of the main ways people are looking at this is they're like, oh, well, maybe Hasan violated sanctions. But number one, we don't know if we agree with the sanctions in the first place. And number two, like what we're seeing with this Turning Point USA kid, it doesn't appear that the violations of these sanctions are being applied evenly. Therefore, it is targeted. And while I think that there is certainly some truth in the unequal application of those violations, it really brings me to think about the situation with Al Capone. And don't get me wrong, I do not think that Hasan is Al Capone. I want to be clear, Al Capone killed people. Hasan is just a streamer. But we understand.
I need to delineate the arguments here, because up until the Al Capone analogy, I'm still going to let that cook in my brain for a little bit. But I agreed with everything he said. But I would stick by the principle as whatever happens to Hasan needs to happen to Tucker Carlson. Okay? So, if we're accusing Hasan, I think with some evidence that he is a Chinese simp, he might have received some financial or political incentives in order to travel to China and propagandize their government. He's a anti-American. He's kind of a piece of shit. You know, all that kind of stuff. I think all of that is true in reference to Tucker Carlson and Russia. I think he probably has some kind of perverse financial incentive with Russia. I think he has probably a perverse financial incentive with Qatar and the Gulf states. I don't think that, like he can be critical of Israel, but I think that if Tucker Carlson was just neutral and not receiving money from anybody, I think that he would be like, kind of like me. He would be like a tepid critic of Israel. And yet he makes it a mainstay of his content. Number one, because it's algorithmically popular. But then number two, because I think there is a perverse financial incentive. So if we're going to be subpoenaing, that's a funny word. If we're going to be subpoenaing Hasan Piker for his relationships to China and for his relationships to Cuba, we should 100% be subpoenaing. I know it's subpoenaing, but I like, saying penis almost. We should be 100% subpoenaing Tucker Carlson and seeing if he violated FARA laws in reference to Russia and Qatar. So hold on, real quick. Let's just Google the FARA. What is the FARA law? So, the Foreign Agents Registration Act of 1938 law, requiring individuals and entities acting as agents for foreign principals, including governments, parties, or businesses, to register with the Department of Justice. Its primary purpose is to ensure transparency by making information on activities, finances, and relationships meant to influence U.S. policy or public opinion available to the public. So, yeah, so basically, anyone working under the direction of a foreign principal engaged in lobbying, public relations, or political consulting must register. So I feel like maybe there's some kind of exception to this, but I would be curious if this applies to like alt media propagandists. And if it does apply to alt media propagandists, I think fucking Tim Pool should be investigated. Lauren Southern should be investigated. Lauren Chen should be investigated. Tucker Carlson should be investigated. Benny Johnson should be investigated. So once again, I have no problems going after Hasan Piker. But whatever we go after Hasan Piker on should be equally done to all of the conservative commentators that I just articulated. Oh, and Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer. I think there's a high chance that Laura Loomer is a paid Zionist propagandist. And she might not be disclosing that through the FARA Act in compliance with the law.
That the way they went after Al Capone, the way they got him was for tax evasion. And we understand that he wasn't targeted by the IRS, that the IRS was randomly like, oh, hey, we think this guy might have a problem with his taxes. The problem is he was causing all these other problems and taking advantage of all these loopholes with the liberties that are afforded in a liberal society as opposed to an authoritarian state. He was taking advantage of them. And so we understand that they had to apply some of these rules that he was breaking to address the greater problem, which was to get him off the street. Now, I say all this in acknowledging that the threshold, the legal threshold for it to be a criminal complaint is actually outrageously high. So I don't think we're even really at that level. But I do think that the hostile nature of the Cuban government and the Cuban island is unbelievably not talked about. A lot of people talk about Cuba as if, oh, it's just another island down there and we had like a shaky past with them. But to not go on and on and on, the fact of the matter is, according to Hasan, the trip was organized with the Cuban government. So this was a Cuban government approved political program. And it being a political program, that means that the Cuban military and intelligence services were somewhat involved. Even if that means that their involvement was, we approve, it means that they were involved. And I think that's way more serious than anybody's talking about right now.
Yeah, so a few things. One,
How about instead of saying there is no evidence, why don't we say we should find the evidence and then do it accordingly? This is one of the things that's very frustrating for me, is that police officers, I know this might be weird to you, but police officers are not psychic. I don't know if you knew this or not. But what happens is a patrol officer will go out onto town and somebody will say, this crime occurred. And then we'll say, okay, you're saying this crime occurred. Would you be willing to write me a sworn written affidavit effectively stating that if you lied to me about this crime, you can be prosecuted for lying about the crime? And are you willing to furnish me with any evidence that supports that this crime occurred? So videos of the crime occurring, photos of the crime occurring, text messages where the person is threatening to commit the crime that actually occurred, the threatening text messages themselves being evidence of some kind of like stalking crime, emails, photos, videos, email, fingerprints, you know, like in the case of burglary, we will oftentimes spend hours fingerprinting vehicles and houses looking for fingerprints unrelated to the people who live in the home. And so what ends up happening is you've cast a very wide net of evidence that you think might be related to the alleged criminal offense. And then as a police officer, either a detective or a patrolman, depending on how your jurisdiction works, you actually isolate the information that you think is relevant to the alleged crime, and then you pass it up to either a state attorney or a detective. Now, with detectives primarily deal with the more serious crimes in the city because they have a limited amount of time in a workday. Truly, detectives, at least in my city, they were overwhelmed. They were working like 50 cases at a time. And what they were told when they went to like a detective training seminar was that they're not working cases. With that kind of caseload, they are only doing slam dunks. So probably half of their cases, and they're just getting closed out. It's like closed out, not enough evidence, can't prosecute. But what they were told at the detective seminar was that if they had more detectives within the municipality, and if they had a caseload between 10 or 20, they could probably run down half the cases that they're closing out as not enough evidence and actually substantiate those cases into either criminal prosecutions or truly closed cases. Okay? And so as a result, when you guys go, oh, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, my police brain goes, well, we got a little bit of evidence, but if we wanted additional evidence, we would need to use the available evidence in order to create support for a warrant in order to pull communications to see if there is evidence of a crime. And you're not going to be able to get that evidence until you get the warrant. Okay? So basically, we're at step 0 of an investigation, and you're saying, nothing to see here, let's close it out. And that's not how law enforcement investigations work. Okay? You pull threads, pull threads, pull threads, pull threads, and pull threads until you see whether or not you have enough for a criminal case. You don't say, you know, I like this guy, so I'm not going to pull the thread. That's not how it works. So anyways. Symposium, which I'm assuming is Doobie, says, also Fel, please unhide messages on my Doobie account. This one doesn't have YouTube Premium, so the stream stops when it's in my pocket. You're costing our boy view count and money. Correct. Doobie, I'll take a look at it. Fellrunner sent me the process or whatever, but he's like a managing moderator on the channel. And then what's funny is I'm a creator on the channel, but when I went into the YouTube community standards modification tab in the YouTube studio, I actually was not able to see the members and hidden profiles tab, which makes me wonder whether or not, weirdly enough, I think Fellrunner has the permission to ban people. And weirdly enough, I don't think I have the permissions to unban people. So I'm gonna have to fuck with that tonight, basically.
My understanding is not only did he approve this with the Cuban government, because yeah, no fucking shit, you have to let the government know before you take a giant ship full of 20 tons of supplies and drive it up to their border. So of course they let them know. He also went through OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Commission, or whatever that stands for. So these went through the same government that is subpoenaing him right now. So the idea that this is like some Cuban coordinated back deal to subvert American interest is pretty ridiculous to me. The second thing is this subpoena isn't alleging a crime even. It's just, hey, let's go after you by looking into you, assuming that you did something bad, but we're not sure yet, which is very clearly like, let's, you know, try to investigate this person to produce some sort of chilling effect. And third, you did this whole Al Capone thing. Well, what's the Al Capone equivalent that Hasan is doing right now that is like, well, this guy's doing something illegal that we can't get him through, and it's a loophole, so let's go after him. The thing he's doing is talking shit about the government. He's shitting on Democrats, he's shitting on Trump, and you can not like that, and that's fine. I don't like some of the stuff he says. In fact, I don't like a lot of the stuff he says, but I would never say, and this is why we need to find some sort of legal loophole, like, hey, look, he went 55 in a 50 zone, let's lock him the fuck up. That doesn't justify it. So what do you think justifies what he is doing right now, that the Cuban government colluded with him to subvert American interests, or some sort of insane, you know, like back deal here that you think is actually worth arresting this person over? Or what he's doing outside of this, that the side, not real like thing, but this like side project to arrest him is worth arresting him over?
Well, let's start off with some ground terms here. We're not talking about a legal loophole. A lot of people are using a lot of this loose language to talk around the issues. This is not a loophole. I went to Cuba personally, and when I went to Cuba, I kept a notebook with me, and I documented every single thing that I did, because the legal permissions that I went to Cuba with, as Hasan noted, are very strict. And guess what? When I came back, I was questioned on it. This is not some legal loophole that somebody is, oh, well, technically everybody's, it's 55 and a 50. This is actually very serious. And going to an island that is actively involved in military and intelligence operations is perhaps the most aggressive intelligence entity addressing the United States, consistently houses Chinese and Russian intelligence facilities. This isn't a joke. And by the way, to put this into comparison, because like I said, we keep on talking.
Okay, Fellrunner, I'm defending you as Hand of the King, but you need to calm your fucking tits, okay? People are allowed to argue in my fucking chat, and even people who disagree with me are allowed to donate, okay? Okay? Chill the fuck out. Why would you want a CP hoarder on the channel? Because allegedly, any sensitive materials or criminal materials are being turned over to law enforcement. Why don't you fucking step the fuck up and donate $255 a month to the channel? I still wouldn't ban Doobie on principle. Let's be real. I just want to make fun of the fact that you motherfuckers are constantly talking shit about somebody who gives tons of money. So, anyways.
Over Cuba, like, oh, it's just like some interest. It's just some interest. If somebody went to Russia and started spending money at Russian military-owned premises, and then they came back and they said, hey, we're going to look into whether you violated any sanctions, I don't think anybody would be freaking out about it. In fact, I think most people would be saying, hey, wait, what? You spent money at a Russian military organization? Maybe we should look into it. And like you said, I think it's right. Number one, from my perspective,
look into it for what? What's the risk here?
To see if well, I think the risk here is that he is collaborating with Cuban intelligence apparatus. I mean, one of the main things that he said when he in one of the main things we were talking about that he said was that the Cuban government reached out to him through an intermediary about having consistent internet access. So what is going on with him having consistent military
It's not about money. I could survive without Doobie. But you guys are being fucking pussies. So, stop being fucking pussies. Matter of fact, let's stop fucking talking about it. Okay? Fellrunner openly hates snarkers, including Doobie, because he thinks it fucks up the vibe. But, if motherfuckers are not being wild in chat, then they're welcome in chat, even if they're antisocial dipshits. Okay? It's that fucking simple. Why even watch the video, Connor? Because I'm running out time until 12:30 so we can move into geopolitics. Oh my god. Okay, guys, chill the fuck out. Chill the fuck out or you're going to start pissing me off. Okay? Chill the fuck out. Okay? Oh no, Connor thinks he's cool casually chewing pebbles. They're peanuts, bro. They're peanuts. They're not rocks. God damn it. All right, calm your tits.
Internet access and consistent power access on an island in the middle of a blackout. Was that a military network? Was that a military generator? And if he was on the military network, what if all the FBI wants is possession of his laptop to start going through the records of getting to the bottom of the details of that military military internet network? There's like 20 dozen different things here. And Hasan himself has said, and this really seems to be the case, he is not the target. He doesn't think he's the target. I don't think he's the target. It seems like, honestly, it seems like Code Pink isn't even the target. It seems like the target might be whoever the main financial backers are of Code Pink. And to sit here and say that an intelligence agency has absolutely no interest in a series of influence operations that are addressing ongoing military conflicts. I don't understand how we can sort of live in that world where it's just like, oh, why would the FBI be interested? Of course they're interested.
So this to me is one of those things where people will look at the laws in the books for immigration and say, well, of course they broke the law. Don't you think they have an interest in investigating the laws that they broke? And you're kind of deferring to like these laws that exist, which by the way, haven't always existed and changed significantly under Obama and then were reversed in 2017. And then to say that this is not
far as 1938.
Some sort of agenda-driven thing, to me is belying the point that this is clearly an agenda-driven thing, and whether or not they're targeting Hasan and Code Pink, the point of this is to use them as this sort of surrogate for we're attacking Cuba. And the conversation right now is being centered on, should Hasan get in trouble for this? If you think there's a good faith effort by an intelligence agency to go through Hasan's computer to find potential adversarial information, maybe this is totally possible. Do you think that's why he's being centered at these articles? Do you think that's why the conversation is centered entirely around him and not what you're saying? Because you're giving the most good faith possible interpretation of what an administration might be doing, which is to me absolutely ridiculous given everything we've seen come out of the Trump administration. Like you would have to be delusional to say anything like this is that, unless it's on paper and ignoring the last 8 years of Trump that we've seen.
Well, one of the things that I when I listen to you and a panel of people speak about this on Live and Learn, I noticed that everybody's initial response was, well, this is coming out of the Trump administration, so we immediately need to completely discredit it. And while I think that large political things coming from the Trump administration warrant serious scrutiny. They warrant seriously going back over some things. I think it's utterly ridiculous to live in the world where we don't like the president, so we're just going to discredit literally everything that happens from the government on period. Because there's no real difference
Did I
between
ever say that?
I mean, that's essentially your argument. You said that I've got to be delusional to be asserting.
What information do you think that they'll get out of Hasan's laptop that they couldn't get through the entire military intelligence apparatus that they're already doing with spying, intercepting communications? Why do you think they're subpoenaing specifically Hasan and Code Pink? And why do you think these people are the ones being highlighted by Fox?
I feel like you already articulated this. So, I'm not an IT guy. Okay? I'm not an IT guy. I don't understand shit about fucking reference to computers. I assume that if somebody is, able to hack into my computer and track my keystrokes and check my dick strokes and all that kind of shit, they're just watching me through my webcam fucking beating it, And then they see that I'm like not broke. Like I'm not like a totally broke bitch, but I'm also just paying my bills. And while I'm critical of the American government, and I am worried about like AI and Palantir and facial recognition software and the NSA tracking all our bullshit, at the end of the day, I think I'm small potatoes. I'm not like a anti-American dissident who wants to collapse the American empire. And not only that, I'm not engaged in asymmetric terrorist or anti-federal fucking, asymmetric warfare. And so as a result, even if I am on a list of potential political dissidents, I'm probably listed as like very low and very R-slurred. I'm like super low, broke, retarded. He's not going to do anything. And that's fine, because that's descriptively true. But this Lockheed liberal already articulated why Hasan Piker would be a target. Not only is he a self-identifying opponent of American empire and American government, he's a revolutionary communist who wishes that the American people weren't such fucking pussies so they could have a Chinese-style revolution, but he knows that they're not. So as a result, he's going to grift about being a communist revolutionary, but realistically, he's going to vote and be a political activist like a social fucking Democrat. And then, what would be the other point? He already articulated why this would be useful in order to map Cuban fucking internet systems. Because so much of the fucking Cuban government and Cuban infrastructure is run by the government. So Soy Pill just ignored what the fuck this guy said and just pretended he didn't fucking say it. So we already know why. We already know how. We already know what's valuable. We already know what's potentially criminal. So once again, I think this is fucking cope. But if you're like, damn, Connor's justifying the subpoenaing of Hasan Piker's records, everything I said just now stands for Lauren Southern, my internet friend, Lauren Chen, a girl I hate on the internet, Tim Pool, a guy I vacillate between tolerance and hatred for, Benny Johnson, a gay conservative commentator who's still in the closet, and Dave Rubin, an openly gay conservative commentator who quite obviously took hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Russian government, knowingly or unknowingly, should be determined through the warrants process. Anyways, got a couple of super chats, so I'm going to read them. Michael Hatch, for $5 says, I'm enjoying this live stream in the aggregate. That's good to hear. Old School with the 5 says, Connor is the pretty girl Doobie is flirting with, and Fell is the ugly girl jumping in between them and saying she's not interested. I'll go ahead and love that comment. Not because I'm actually interested in a homosexual relationship with Doobie, but because fucking Fell is being overly protective of the community because he's anti-snark. He does not like the snarkers.
News, which, by the way, happened before Hasan or Code Pink have confirmed they even got a subpoena. So this is a sensationalized article to try to get ahead of something that might not have even happened yet. Maybe it's going to happen, or maybe it never will happen, but let's just say it will. This is meant to drum up hey, look at these left-wing people sentiment, clearly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I one of the things that we're talking about here is like, is this politically targeted? And it reminds me about conversations when people talk about terrorism. Oh, well, it's such a political thing about what is terrorism and what isn't terrorism. Well, terrorism by definition is political. So of course it's political. So this dialogue about like, oh, well, the only reason they're targeting Hasan is because he went to Cuba, because there's a huge military confrontation with Cuba right now. And it's like, yeah, that's how things work. When you
No, wait, hold on. That's not what I'm alleging. I'm alleging they're going after
Okay.
Hasan because he's a left-wing streamer, not because he went to Cuba, right? Nick Shirley went to Cuba. He went to a sanctioned hotel, and they're not subpoenaing him, to my knowledge.
For sure. And I think it's very clear that they are not going after Nick Shirley because Nick Shirley is friendly to the regime. But they are not going after Hasan just because he's left wing, because if they were, they'd be going after every single major left wing commentator that didn't go to Cuba. They're going after Hasan because he's connected, he's low hanging fruit, he's connected to Code Pink, who has outrageously
what do you mean it
nefarious.
didn't go to Cuba? That's the whole reason they're able to have this excuse to go after them. They're going after other people that went on the flotilla or the convoy that went to Cuba, and they're using that as an excuse. Obviously, it's not irrelevant that they went to Cuba, but this is what they're using as the like, oh, and this is why we're allowed to go after you, right? Just like your example with Al Capone, where it's like, well, you did this tax law, now we have an excuse to punish you, to make an example of you, right?
Yeah, and absolutely. I think I don't understand where the confusion here is. There's sort of like some allegation that something nefarious is going on because people collaborated with the Cuban government and, by definition, with how it works, the Cuban military and intelligence apparatus to go on a political trip for the purposes of politics, and then they're being investigated upon it. In what world? I mean, honestly, it would be a miscarriage of justice if they weren't investigated for it. And I would apply that over to the turning. I just don't know this guy's name. Brillin?
Nick Shirley? Or no, a different guy?
Or was Nick Shirley the one that went?
Brian Grimm went. I'm pretty sure Code Pink went. I don't know what their name is affiliated. I know Nick Shirley went on a separate trip. Yeah.
Isn't Nick Shirley the one that he was in the hotel and he was like, oh, the Cuban intelligence officers are following me and I have to hold myself up, and he like left early or something?
Maybe I didn't watch the video. He's the one who's mentally disabled.
Yeah. Well, that's ever since Charlie Kirk, it's gotten really bad for that crowd. But yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's a really huge difference. I was going to point on that is that I thought it was the Brillin guy. Who's the Charlie Kirk replacement? He's got a weird.
Brylan Hollyhand, you're talking about.
Brylan Hollyhand. Yeah, I thought it was Brylan Hollyhand, but maybe it was Nick Shirley. But yeah, so whoever that little pipsqueak, conservative pipsqueak was that went, their experience was overwhelmingly different from the Code Pink experience. Their experience was that they had to lock themselves in their hotel, which, by the way, it seemed like it was the sanctioned hotel. So it seems like he violated that as well, and hide there until he could leave. And you want to know the reason why his experience was different? Was because he wasn't on a government-sponsored, military and intelligence-approved propaganda trip. And so,
Wait,
I think
do you keep ignoring the fact that this went through OFAC? Like he had to get all of this trip approved through OFAC. Like the American government sanctioned this trip. They said this was okay, right?
The American government might have sanctioned parts of this trip. Well, I mean, Hasan said that they did, but we don't know exactly what they said. We don't know exactly what was approved and what wasn't approved. For all we know, and this is most likely what happened, by the way, was that they had an agenda. They said on these dates we're going to be at these locations, we're going to be at these venues, and this is where we're going to be staying. They submitted that to some kind of a government authority. They approved it and said, this isn't going to violate sanctions. Congratulations. And that's it. But that has nothing to do with the conversations that were had on the island. That has nothing to do with the people with the networks that they connected to on the island. And this is the big one. That has absolutely nothing to do with all of the organization and planning that went before they went, that the government probably wasn't privy to when they submitted the request for information, and certainly what happened after. So, I mean, I really don't understand this idea that it's like, oh, well, I mean, like down to every single person that they talked to on the street, the U.S.
Missy says, I think they should focus on targeting. Connor should wake up. They've repeated themselves. What do you want from me? I already said it. I said it twice. Hasan Piker bad. Hasan Piker, not super bad, but pretty goddamn bad. And anything that happens to Hasan should happen to Tucker and the Tenet people. I've said it 4 fucking times. Do you know what's happened since I've said it 4 fucking times? Soy Pill said, Trump admin bad, therefore targeting fucking Hasan bad. And then fucking Lockheed Liberal dude, who I like, by the way, Lockheed Liberal says, yeah, but you are totally ignorant of the actual geopolitical threat. Okay? He's saying, no. Cuba actually is a geopolitical threat. They actually are interested in doing pro-Cuban, anti-American propaganda. They are interested in infiltrating our intelligence and military apparati so they can fucking destroy American power projection in the Caribbean. We've already said this. We've already said this. Doobie says, not interested, I can fix you. Well, thank you for the 10. Rifleman with the 2 says, nobody should like snarkers, hiss. Okay. And then we have like meta commentary about whether or not snarkers are allowed in the community. Snarkers are allowed in the community if they're not snarking, if they're engaging with the content, if they're commenting about the content that we're actually watching, if they're not being antisocial fucking freaks. They are allowed in the community. But if we're watching something about Hasan Piker and they're like, did you know molestiny molests kids? And it's totally unrelated. And let's say somebody says, hey, we're not talking about Destiny right now, and this is not a drama segment. Can you please shut the fuck up about Destiny? And they're like, no, fuck you. I'm a free speech warrior, and I must talk about Destiny's sexual mistakes at all times. Then we can moderate them. Okay? But until they're antisocial, or they engage in drama commentary when it's not appropriate, weirdly enough, they're human beings who are capable of engaging with Twitch and YouTube political content. So stop over-moderating them just because you don't like their political tribe. Okay? Jesus fucking tit fuckers. Anyways.
U.S. government sanctioned this trip. That's just not the case. And here's the other thing, is that like this really cannot be stated enough. Cuban intelligence is outrageously sophisticated. It is outrageously active. It did not curb its actions after the fall of the Soviet Union. There's this great BBC article I have with an interview with a CIA agent that focused primarily on counterintelligence. And through much of their career, they focused on Cuba's DGI, which is their intelligence agency. And they say very clearly, actually, the Cuban intelligence apparatus is significantly more robust than the KGB ever was. It's significantly more robust than the Russian SVR, which is the spiritual successor of the KGB. And so the idea that we're going to have this Cuban government approved, certainly, political program on the island, and that the Cuban intelligence wouldn't get involved at all is strange. The main question is, how involved did they get it? Like, was the extent of their involvement a cold approach on a couple of non-important, non-celebrity members there? Perhaps. Was there also an effort to establish a political program with the various political entities in that cohort? Most likely. And so it's worth exploring.
Okay. So my question is this. You're under the assumption that there could have been some sort of collusion with the Cuban government that was not sanctioned by the American government. They want to investigate that to see if some sanctions were broken. The extent to which that would be harmful to the American project is very questionable to me, like what Hasan or Code Pink could have done that would so greatly subvert American interest. I'm not quite sure, but maybe you can explain that. But regardless, why then are they not subpoenaing specifically the organizers of this convoy? Why are they not subpoenaing every single person that went on this convoy? Or why are they singling out 2 of the biggest names in left-wing media that are consistently opposed to their political project?
Sure. Yeah. So I think almost all of the attendees on that trip are people that fit into Hasan's headspace. I don't think there's like a lot. I could be wrong, but I believe that there are, let's just say, many other people on that trip that fit into Hasan's worldview and stuff. Like there's this like a female tanky girl that was on the trip, and there's like this female comedian that's like pretty left wing that was on the trip. There's certainly several other people. And so I think we should start, number one, with the idea that we don't know who all got the subpoenas. Perhaps the only salacious people that got subpoenas were Hasan Piker and Code Pink, and perhaps it actually goes farther than that. But I mean, my honest read on the situation is, once again, Hasan's read on the situation. I think because of Hasan's size, because of his connections, because of his how many like large, widespread political connections and political collaborations he is probably involved with a lot of these different tentacles from this Code Pink backer that they're interested in. And I think it really is quite as simple as Hasan's read on it, is that they're fundamentally most interested in the in what is it? I think his name is Singham, the one of the large financial backers behind Code Pink. Code Pink does significantly more sketchy stuff than Hasan Piker ever does. I mean, my own statement on this was that I didn't think Hasan should even be scrutinized for the trip. I thought maybe he should be scrutinized for the China trip, but that this is most likely related to Code Pink's connections. And then lo and behold, because Hasan apparently doesn't speak to lawyers, he's on stream every night talking about all the different sketchy political organizations connected to this trip. So yeah, I think that was probably the entire intent.
Okay.
Okay, wait. So can I ask a question on what we
Real
actually
quick,
agree on?
then I gotta get to super chats, and I have a question for each of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, my question is, do we agree that Hasan, or maybe Code Pink, but definitely Hasan, should not be punished at all for this? That like just requesting some information from him is completely the limits to which this administration should be going?
Well, it depends on whether or not he's created a criminal offense, at which point the argument should be that Hasan should be held accountable for a criminal offense, but so should tenant media. Okay? I understand somebody said this, might have been a snarker, but they said, weren't the tenant media people effectively unpunished? And I think the answer is yes. I think there were criminal probes during the Biden administration, but they didn't pursue it aggressively. And then as a result, Trump won, and there were no criminal indictments due to the tenant allegations. And I think the Trump administration has effectively, they've said they're not interested at all. Like Lauren Chen was the one person who 100% proof positive knew it was Russians. She knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that the tenant media organization was a Russian psychological operation that had created a fake billionaire in order to funnel money to American media creators who would be isolationist and therefore anti-Ukraine. So, my point is that if we are able to establish that Lauren Chen violated FARA, she should be prosecuted. I think she's an American resident despite being a Canadian citizen. She should be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. But that also applies to Hasan Piker. If Hasan Piker has violated FARA, he should be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. Finally, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson has traveled to Russia. He's done Russian think pieces. He's he's interviewed Alexander Dugin and swept for him. He's interviewed Putin and swept for him. If Tucker Carlson provably has knowingly accepted foreign money for these operations, then he should be investigated. And if there is a criminal violation, he should be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. I have no problems with random people having sympathies for foreign governments. I have no problems with people even lobbying on behalf of foreign governments. But when they do so, they should comply with the 1938 Foreign Agents Registration Act. And if they're not in compliance and they're ignorant of the law, they should be reminded of the compliance of the law, fined, and basically allowed to operate in compliance with the law. If they're knowingly violating the law and are actively participating as propagandists for hostile regimes to the United States, and they say, lol, fuck the United States, I love taking money from Russia, and I love doing Russian paid propaganda in violation of American criminal law, then they should obviously be prosecuted. It's pretty fucking simple. Yeah, fuck AIPAC. True. I would take AIPAC money. But if I took AIPAC money, I should 100% register with FARA if it's necessary in compliance with the law. I'd be like, hey guys, I'm a paid Israeli propagandist. I'm going to be sweeping for the annexation of southern Lebanon and the divine right of the Jewish people to annex the West Bank. But I am currently receiving money from the Israeli government. You know? That's what I would do. Miradol for 20 DKK says, Connor says Hasan bad, so Fel won't feel sad. Oh, no, I actually do genuinely dislike Hasan Piker a substantial amount. Pondering Politics says, listening to a bit of your Pisco Ryan coverage in between videos. I'm a Discord DM you 2 Twitter clips you should watch when you get a chance. Both are from Pisco annotated uploads of the MDD debate. Okay, cool. Thanks, Pondering. Good to see you, King. Happy that my toxic radioactive TNT explosion with the DGG community hasn't affected our friendship. Good to see you, King. I once saw Fell Runner kissing Doobie in an alley somewhere, and he said, don't tell anybody because they're not going to listen. Or I changed what you said in chat because I thought it was funnier. Yeah, so it turns out that Doobie and Fell Runner are actually in a secret gay relationship. So that actually explains a lot, to be honest. Maybe the United States shouldn't be approving trips to Cuba if any random person on the street can be accused of being a communist super agent. Rule for thee, but not for me. What? 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 Why can't I go to Cuba and then be subpoenaed if I potentially coordinated with fucking Cuban intelligence? What the fuck? And Ali, it's me sweeping for the Lebanese annexation is relatively sarcastic. Okay? It's relatively sarcastic. I still think it's fucked up. AIPAC is run by the Israeli government. Arguably no big in gaming, but AIPAC is run by Zionist super donors who view part of their moral and political struggle within the United States as a necessary paid operation to improve relations between the United States of America and Israel. And so it would be like, let's say that the Kennedy administration actually argued aggressively that they should be subject to FARA limitations. And then they backed off of it after Kennedy was assassinated. But my point is that if Ireland, let's say there was the, what does Israel stand for? You might even be able to keep it AIPAC. What does AIPAC stand for? AIPAC stands for the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. So let's say that I created a new AIPAC, and it was the American Irish Public Affairs Committee, and we had millionaire and billionaire Irish people who were ethno-religiously Irish. They were Irish Catholics. Their bloodline is like 99% Irish, and they're heavily sympathetic to the Irish Republican cause in Ireland. And so they created a political action committee in the United States, and it's run by Irish citizens, to be clear. But what they do is they create media propaganda in order to sanitize the Irish Republican Army in their glorious struggle against the monarchist see you next Tuesdays who still serve Britain. And they also paid for Irish Americans to go on pilgrimage to Ireland in order to motivate them to support Ireland as well. Shit, I might do this. This actually sounds like a brilliant fucking idea. Regardless of the technicality, I think that people saying, hey, you're effectively a foreign country's lobbying agency, and as a result, you should be subject to FARA laws, should be evaluated and then litigated and then decided upon. I don't think that the American Irish Public Affairs Committee should take offense that they're being criticized for being out and out simps for a foreign country, right? Pondering Politics for $10 says, to clarify, please watch and react to the clips I DM'd you on your stream. They're relevant to the Pisco-Ryan debate and will be interesting to get your take. Okay, I will do that momentarily, but I did have a digestive issue earlier this year, and I need to go take care of something for a minute or two. So I'm sorry that you're going to have to wait for a second, but I will literally go handle my business and come back. because I don't want to have a digestive issue on stream. So I think I've explained myself sufficiently. I actually think that we should start the American Irish Political Action Committee because I think we could make billions of dollars doing so. And I will be right back. Enjoy the psychic damage of this Lockheed Liberal and soy pill.
I definitely, yes, I completely agree with that. In fact, and this is, you know, to add a little bit of levity here, one of the things that I consistently joke with people about people like Jackson Hinkle, who are like behind enemy lines with the Houthis and deep into the Russians, is I'm like, guess what? The CIA probably compromised that kid like 2.5 years ago. So like the likelihood that this kid is ever going to go to prison for any of this stuff, if it ever reached a point in which he was going to reach that place, they would take him once he came back home. They'd threaten him with 30 years in prison and say, you're going to cooperate with us or your life is over. And guess what? So no, I don't think that I don't think there is a world in which Hasan Piker will certainly face criminal. I don't even think he'll face the civil penalties, and I don't think that he should either. I think the best thing that the United States could hope from something like this is just getting information out of Hasan about what happened.
Okay, and then the second question that we agree on is the reason he's being singled out from anyone else on this convoy is just because of how big he is, right?
I mean, the short answer is yes. The long answer is what does it mean that he's big? It's big that he has a lot of information. He has a lot of connections. So no, I don't think it has to do with his influence. I do think that it goes hand in hand with the fact that he knows so many people. He has access to so many people. He has been privy to so many conversations. Well, sure, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Wick.
Sure, okay. $5 from It's Vishy. Thank you for the $5. I'm uncommitted on how I feel about this issue. I think Hasan and his side need to earn my vote. It's not on me to appease them. Thank you for the $5.
Good name.
$2 from Bad Horse. This is for the Wick TV Yummy Ramen Fund. Well, appreciate that.
Hell
$2.
Yeah.
We're going to get it. Okay. $10 from Real Determinatus. The short answer is no. The long answer is maybe. If he genuinely can show contrition and willingness to back the Democrats, no matter how much of a corporate neoliberal Zionist they are. Thank you for the $10.
It's so fucking stupid. Who cares? He could be a literal neo-Nazi. I'd be saying the same argument. Like, I don't care how anti-American they are. You shouldn't be punished and singled out by the American government for trying to do something that I think is completely legitimate, which is deliver aid to a country that's being, embargoed to the point of starvation. Like, whatever. This is so silly.
I guess that brings me to my first question for you, Soy Pill, is a subpoena a punishment? If what Bishop is saying
a subpoena
is
in and of itself is not a punishment. You're looking at it in the context of why the government is doing it, how this is being made into a story, and whether or not this has a chilling effect on people that are trying to do similar things, which is, hey, the government's going to start looking into you if you do anything like this, instead of, hey, if they just said, look, we have some general concerns about what might have happened. These people are not in trouble. In fact, they are more than welcome to do this anytime they want. We just want to make sure that nothing, collusion went and happened. Like, even then, it might have some sort of chilling effect, but you can see the way this is being implemented is going after these people, and that's what I have an issue with. It's not just, we're just asking for information. It's, why is the government, the Trump government, looking into me and my, doings where this was just some mission to deliver some food aid? Oh, it's because they want to appear as if they're cracking down on the crazy radical commie left. That's why I think this is happening.
$5 from True Striker. Soy Pill. Why do you assume there is no possible way he broke a law? There's some smoke.
I didn't say that.
Maybe there's fire. There hasn't been an investigation yet.
I think there's a fair good chance that he broke the law, right? I think you violate sanctions if you give money to unapproved Cuban businesses. So if you bought a fucking sandwich from the wrong vendor, that might technically be breaking the law. What I think didn't happen is some crazy extrajudicial collusion that subverted American interest, instead of, oh, this guy might have gave some money to a business that wasn't approved. Who fucking cares? In the same way, who cares if someone went 55 in a 50 zone? But they're using that, like the Al Capone thing, to crack down on these sorts of people. That's what I have an issue with. Not, hey, maybe he did break a law, but I don't think that law is something that is enforced. There's a disparity by which it's enforced, clearly with a Nick Shirley thing. It's pretty irrelevant to me.
Sure.
I am perfectly okay with what Soy Pill has said. I want to move into Geopol, but before we do, we will be watching the clips that Pondering Politics has submitted to us. I'm just going to tell you real quick, because somebody said this was cope in reference to my divorce, but I am going to stand 10 toes down on it. I understand that cooking for a family of 4 and doing laundry for a family of 4 is substantially more logistically complex than doing laundry, groceries, and cooking for a family of 3 that you only have to take care of half of the time. I understand that. I understand the nuances of that topic. But I will tell you that it wasn't an issue, but it was a tension that I felt like we were consuming way too many fucking carbs as a family. The kids love carbs. I love carbs. Wife loves carbs. We all love protein. So, fucking spaghetti, chicken nuggets and fucking spaghetti, pasta, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is amazing. And I'm not complaining about the taste. But as an almost 40-year-old man, I am worried about endlessly consuming carbs and not consuming enough fruits and vegetables. So, actually getting to shop and cook for myself has been a kind of blessing in my life where I've been able to eat additional fruit, vegetables, and nuts. Yes, not semen, but actually peanuts. And as a result, I feel like my digestive system, while still not being ideal, is substantially healthier than it used to be. Okay? So I'm, once again, huge fan of pasta, huge fan of carbs. I understand the logistics of cooking for a family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just telling you that one of the silver linings of the split with the wife is the fact that I'm cooking for myself and I am able to consume more produce and therefore have a healthier digestive system. Okay? Yes. Keto, Connor? Not quite. I still love carbs. This was sent 4-1, and it is currently 6-2, so I don't think that's relevant. It's just this one. It's a Pisco sizzle reel. Okay, so Josiah, hopefully, is still here and wanted me to take a look at some of the clips of Ryan Mullally's performance. And I'll take a look at this. So if you want to watch Ryan Mullally implode and start lying and admitting to luring me into a debate under false pretenses and then refusing to debate, please watch the full debate on my YouTube. The sizzle should show you that he gave a taste of admitted dishonesty and bad faith. Okay, I think I saw some of this during the debate, but let's play it anyways.
I was told Whick had me waiting in the wings to do a debate, me and some other attorney, a lefty attorney, against Pisco and Josiah on court packing. Whick bumped me for fucking Connor. Why did Whick bump me for Connor? Is it because Connor's going through a hard time? Is it because Josiah didn't want to get blown the fuck out? Almost certainly. Whick said it was his fault, but here's what I think happened. I think Josiah said, I don't want to debate Ryan.
I messed up. It was my fault. I booked wrong. I had to make a choice between whether I'm going to have counterpoints on or whether I'm going to have Ryan Mullally on. And I chose counterpoints for a variety of reasons, right?
Were any of those reasons because Josiah said a single thing to you?
No.
Hold on. Wait a minute. As someone who's booked before, so Josiah is saying that he wants my earnest reaction to this. I'll give you my earnest reaction to this. As someone who's done booking before, clearly you're going to book off of a variety of preferences. And some of those are going to be audience size. Some of those are going to be what kind of show you're trying to create, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, I think if we were going for maximal impact of competent and coherent people talking about this issue, you should have as many Juris Doctorates as possible. So in Whick's defense, he did bring on a lesser known Juris Doctorate who had connection problems. And so I think that Whick actually checks the box through which I'm criticizing him. He had a dry Juris Doctorate guy who knew about the topic, who would fight about it passionately. It just turns out that that guy was a boomer and had a horrible internet connection. And then there's obviously like the social aspect. Pisco and I banter. We're actually quite famous for our heated conversations. And then I think Josiah and I have rapport. So the truth is, Whick in his heart of hearts could have truly believed that I would create a better show because Ryan has been antagonistic to both Josiah and Pondering that's the same guy, to Josiah and Pisco in the past. But I also think that Ryan can feel like he's getting boxed out of the liberal space because he's not sufficiently bending the knee to the medium and large size liberal content creators, and he's not being as nice or tactful as I am, which should not be a prerequisite for a debate. Okay? A prerequisite for a debate should be, do you understand the subject material? And do you know how to competently argue? And by the way, here's another thing that I'll just admit. I felt like I sufficiently understood the topic at hand to just kind of roll in half-cocked and just start fucking blazing away at Pisco. But I'll admit that it was poor optics to not understand that Harry Reid had eliminated the filibuster for lower court appointments, which was separate from nuking the filibuster in reference to legislation. If I was truly a subject matter expert and political commentator worthy of throwing elbows with Pisco and Josiah based off of their clout size, I should have already known that. But I didn't. So I displayed my ignorance, and then I just called Pisco gay because it's funny. So anyways, let's continue.
Josiah was not consulted in any of this, right?
So now I'd like to address my argument for the debate proposition. Is that all right?
No, it's not all right,
so I brought an argument to the debate proposition, and you don't want to address it. Why?
Yeah, I do think we should
Republicans out of power.
try to stay as close to the topic as possible.
I'm trying to actually focus us on the thing that we agreed to talk about.
I don't care what you are trying to focus on, Pisco.
Well, you don't care about
Topic as possible.
Okay. Let me, Josiah said he wants my specific reaction to the DM. Connecting everyone in chat, Pisco James offered to host a debate on the prompt. The Democrats are justified in expanding the Supreme Court next week, May 28th at 9 p.m. Those details work for me. How's that for you? Oh, shit. Is this to Pisco? Pisco. Okay. How's that for you? It should let me check my schedule. Thanks, James. Works for me. Happy to announce it whenever. Base, consider it booked for May the 28th at 9 p.m. Okay. Yeah. I got you.
So now I'd like to address my argument for the debate proposition. Is that all right?
No, it's not all right,
So I brought an argument to the debate proposition, and you don't want to address it. Why?
Yeah, I do think we should
Republicans out of power.
try to stay as close to the topic as possible.
I'm trying to actually focus us on the thing that we agreed to talk about.
I don't care what you are trying to focus on, Pisco.
Well, you don't care about our agreement on the debate?
No, I do not care about that at all.
You don't agree about the agreement we had to debate this thing?
Not at all.
I do want to clarify if I should consider that a concession on this specific.
Sure, I concede.
You concede. Okay, so you concede the Democrats are justified in court expansion. Just be clear.
No, I obviously think that's bullshit.
Then why are you lying? Wait, no, stop. Why are you lying and saying that you concede when you don't actually concede?
My personal integrity matters less to me than the future of my country.
So you lie when it's convenient.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I would just reiterate, and Josiah, if you wanted to call in, you could call in. If you just want to type text because you're busy, you could just type text. My argument then, as it is now, that it's poor form. It's obvious. Well, you're looking much better than yesterday. Ha ha ha. You looked knackered. That's kind of silly because I got like 8 hours of sleep yesterday and I got 6 hours of sleep today. I did have, what was yesterday? Yesterday was Monday. I did have the kids over the weekend and they can be a little tough. I'll call real quick. Okay. Yeah. Just go ahead and call me whenever is convenient for you. Okay, cool. He's already here. Pop out chat. Let me do.
Hey, buddy. Hey, I've got you.
Hey, happy to hear from you. Considering my own dramatic previous week, how are you today?
I am not aware of all of that. My understanding is that
You should
there's
stay away
some-
from it.
Yeah, I mean, I heard obviously when the debate panel came up about offline stuff. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
hear about that. But anyway, that so all
Yeah,
that.
tell me what you're trying to
notwithstanding-
communicate to me in reference to Ryan.
Well, no, I'm in between videos, and so I have my AirPods in, and I'll like listen to stuff while I'm editing. And I saw that you were reacting to the debate. I got like 5 minutes in, and I saw that you were looking at like the raw footage from modern day debate, and I'm like, ooh, he should see some of the stuff that Pisco annotated in, because I don't know if you end up getting to that later or whatever, because I've not heard all your coverage. But I'm like, well, just in case, I'll bring this to his attention since it's so relatively fresh. Just two things I want to bring to your attention. Ryan was the one who proposed the very prompt to modern day debate that he ignored. It would be bad enough if he simply agreed to a prompt that Pisco proposed and then came into the debate and refused to debate it. That is poor form. He auto loses the debate by concession, because it's like, I agree to play soccer with you, except now I don't want to play soccer. I want to play chess. Well, you lose the soccer match by definition, right? If you look at the DM, he was the one who brought the fucking prompt to modern day debate, so it makes it worse. But here's the other thing. Other thing. And the second clip I want you to see, Pisco brought the receipts. Ryan accuses Pisco of wanting to lock the Republicans out of power, but Ryan has publicly called for locking the Democrats out of power. So even if Pisco wants to lock the GOP out of power, you are not morally superior. You're worse. You want to lock the Dems out of power, and your preferred political candidate, Donald Trump, has also called for the same. So it's just... I just thought it was hilarious. It's like, Pisco, I'm trying to expose your tyranny. You want to lock the Republicans out of power. Here's all the times I say that.
Yeah, but isn't this cringe? So I do find this cringe, and I don't like it. Unfortunately, it's the political landscape in which we presently exist. Is his argumentation during those clips effectively like, well, Pisco wants to do it, so I want to do it? Like, is it that?
No,
is it like tit for tat or eye for an eye or whatever the fuck?
Well, no, because Pisco doesn't bring it up at all during the debate. It was one of the things I was encouraging him to do when the debate was going on. I'm like, well, listen, if Ryan's going to hit you, on the claim, which I don't even know if it's true. I've never heard Pisco say that he wants to lock the Republicans out of power. Certainly, he wants Republicans to lose elections. But
yeah, but I mean, we operate within a political binary. That's not an extreme claim.
Well, right. So, but if the idea is you just simply want to keep the opposition out of power, well, Ryan has publicly called for keeping the opposition out of power. So it's like, again, he's disingenuously claiming a high ground that he himself has forfeited publicly, to say nothing of the fact that he says during that debate that he prefers Trump to the Democrats. Well, Trump has publicly advocated for locking the Democrats out of power. If we pass the SAVE Act, if we eliminate the filibuster, the Democrats will never win another election ever again. They're going to be locked out of power. Like, so even if you're right about Pisco, shut the fuck up. You guys are basically the same in that respect at the best case scenario.
So I've had this argument with Ryan in the past, though, and I'll submit it to you while trying to steelman something that you don't need to accept, by the way. I'm just trying to articulate it. So effectively what he says, and this is truly like mind-boggling to me, but he acts like it's normal, so I feel like I get gaslit into thinking it's normal. He's taken a look at the Constitution of the United States, the formation of the amendments, the legislature, et cetera, and he thinks that the New Deal and effectively anything after 1920 in the United States of America is fundamentally unconstitutional. And so when he looks at the welfare state and the expansion of the welfare state and Medicare and Medicaid and all these entitlement programs, he effectively, maybe I'm straw manning him. He can correct me whenever I talk to him. But effectively, he thinks that we're like 100 years past where we should be constitutionally. Right. And therefore, any team that is willing to roll back the United States by attacking the welfare state and the bloated federal administration, he will support them over the opposition, regardless of any other moral analysis.
Yeah. But again, I want to be clear. I don't begrudge Ryan any of that. I mean, I disagree with him. He's entitled to his view. He's entitled to want to keep Democrats out of power as long as you don't like literally outlaw the opposition party, or engage in so like, for example, why is Trump gerrymandering right now? Why did he start the gerrymandering wars back in 2025 with the Texas mid-decade redistricting? Well, the whole point is to keep the Democrats out of power, right? He said,
sure.
if we don't, well, I'm entitled to those 5 seats. And you have Republicans say, if we don't mid-decade redistrict, we're going to lose the House. So they are using the power that they have to make changes within the structure to advantage themselves. Now, I think that's shitty, but they have every legal right to do it. My point is simply, I don't even necessarily take issue if you're a partisan with that. If you have the power and you want to make certain changes within the structure to make it more beneficial, but you can't then clutch your pearls when the Democrats or some Democrats propose doing the same, because I reject categorically.
Yeah, no, and I've been having pretty complex political conversations with both Ryan and Pisco frequently every few weeks or so. So
Yeah,
what
well,
Ryan?
well, so anyway, so no, that's all I was just wanting to say. Like, again, if he's entitled. Well, there are reasons why he wants to lock the Democrats out of power. Okay, well, the people who want to lock the Republicans out of power also have fucking reasons for wanting to do that, because it's a fascist cult of personality. My point is
But
simply,
can I bring it down to
bitch.
something that I understand you might be limited on time, but can I bring it down to something that I feel like is an
Yeah.
orienting principle that is just gonna determine every single conversation you ever have or don't have with Ryan Mulally going forward. So
there will be none. He burned the bridge. He burned the bridge by lying about Wick and I. That's done. And I mean, to whatever extent I was even willing to reconsider that, what he did on Modern Day Debate was shocking. Like, he shocked me twice. First, with the unhinged meltdown he had about the conspiracy theory that Wick bumped him. And again, he wasn't bumped on purpose, according to Wick. Like, he
just
basically was
overbooked.
keeping. He was keeping Ryan in reserve, and then my understanding is there was like separate drama going on. What's the word? Snarkers. That there was some, whatever that is, whatever drama was going on at the time. And Wick said, I was so consumed in that, I forgot that I had Ryan waiting in the wings. And so when Brad Palumbo wasn't able to be the second person on the panel, he went with you instead and just stood by it. And that's it. There was nothing nefarious there. So. But by lying about it, that bridge is burned. So
then if you'll indulge me a 30-second rant,
Sure.
That way I could just communicate this to you for the non-conversations you'll be having with Ryan Mulally in the future.
Yeah.
So his orienting principle, according to him, is that he views any legislative metric, any political interaction, anything, as to whether or not it is fulfilling like the Declaration of Independence of the United States and the negative rights articulated in the Constitution of the United States. And if something is not articulated, once again, maybe I'm straw manning him. But if it's not articulated as a negative right within like the Bill of Rights of the United States, or if it's not in the spirit of the Declaration of Independence, he views it as fundamentally un-American and immoral. So while from your worldview, you might have you want to save all the black kids, all of the gays, all of the transes, you want to save them from the social ailments that plague them. He views it as fundamentally anti-American and immoral, regardless of your intent. And that's what motivates him to be such a harsh bastard.
Yeah, again, like all that to me is immaterial. He has his reasons.
Just don't be a twat.
Right. Well, number one, don't lie. And number two, don't be a fucking hypocrite. And it seems like that challenge for MAGA pundits is just is zero. You just can't. You can't be a MAGA pundit and not lie and not be a hypocrite. Like, again, if the argument is, well, Pisco wants to keep the opposition out of power. Well, motherfucker, so do you. And you've publicly said as much. And so is your preferred political candidate. So you're worst case scenario, you're just as big of a piece of shit as you claim Pisco is. So you lose there. Best case scenario, it's a draw between you. And number two,
the moral argumentation of effectively like, well, when you do bad things, it's cringe.
Right, exactly. Right.
Because when you do bad things, it's cringe and terrible because what your end goals are bad. But when I do bad things, it's good because I'm pursuing a noble end goal. It's effectively like ends justify the means. And the reason why I'm sick of that, I know that you don't necessarily participate, at least not like abrasively, consistently, in ends justify the means thinking, but I think it's plagued our national discourse, even amongst intelligent people, because effectively what's happening is you can always find a bad actor on the other team that you can point to on why you're justified in being a piece of shit. This would not work on a elementary school playground in America. So I don't understand how all of the adults who were raised in the elementary schools of America don't understand that just because your opposition is bad, that gives you unlimited moral license to behave poorly yourself.
Yeah. Again, I don't have any issues that we could litigate the reasons why you want to do something. I'm just simply saying, like, look, I've got a very mercenary view on the Supreme Court. I think it is a political institution. I think it's been a political institution from the very beginning. The founding fathers use it as a political football. President Adams literally shrank the size of the Supreme Court to prevent President Jefferson from filling those vacancies. It was just a fuck you to Jefferson. These are two of the great founding fathers. The entire process is political, right? They're nominated by political actors, confirmed by political actors. It's just what we're seeing now is more of a mask off moment than anything else. And so I totally understand, like, you know, Ryan and Rob and Lactoid and you to some extent, like you prefer a conservative Supreme Court. I don't take an issue with it. We just disagree. I prefer a liberal Supreme Court. The problem that I have is, again, just the dishonesty and then the hypocrisy of it, which is the Republican Party right now is actively doing things and has been actively doing things to entrench an advantage. The gerrymandering conflict right now is a way to skew the House of Representatives at a default advantage for the Republicans. And they have successfully done so between the voting rights decision coming out of the Supreme Court, as well as the mid-decade redistricting wars. Going into 2028, the Republicans will now have a +4 to +9 advantage in the House.
Yeah.
They already have one in the Senate. They already have one in the Electoral College. The Republican Party is heavily
real quick.
advantaged.
Is that a result of what the Supreme Court did with the VRA?
Yes, because so their decision to effectively gut the Voting Rights Act will allow Southern Republican-controlled states to eliminate minority majority districts, right? So basically to get rid of like the predominantly black districts and gerrymander them on a partisan basis. So again, right now, the right isn't complaining about that. The idea is, look, when we have power, we can make the changes to the system to entrench an advantage in the House, the Senate, the Electoral College, whatever. We're entitled to do that. You all, the Democrats, when you get power, are not permitted to make changes to the system which may or may not advantage yourselves. And that's where I'm like, no, fuck you. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if this is going to be a knife fight in the mud, so be it. But you all have had the knife for the longest time, which means you don't have the room to bitch. Just admit this is what it is. And that's why I appreciate people who go mask off and are like, no, look, there is no principle here. It is about power. And we're slowly starting to face a Democratic Party that is increasingly willing to fight on our terms, and we don't like it. That's fine. But that's all it is.
My role within the ecosystem is probably going to be cringe to partisans on both sides of the aisle. Which is going to be effectively like trying to remind each other of like, you know, like a playground morality. So for instance, like with the packing of the Supreme Court, I can agree that there was an injury that was done that should be amended if the Republicans were truly moral actors. But then oftentimes the Democrats will say, well, the Republicans are not moral actors, therefore we can't count on them to amend the injury that they did in 2016. Therefore, we need to do what the fuck we need to do in order to do power. I understand it from a pragmatic argumentation. However, two things. So number one, in that specific scenario, I will say, hey guys, wouldn't it be great if, since we're acknowledging the partisan nature of the Supreme Court, if when we expanded to 13 seats, we had 6 explicitly partisan Republican seats and 6 explicitly partisan Democratic seats, and then we had like one Chief Justice who was considered like a moderate independent, and then that's how we did things. And even though we all know we're never going to get there, what I am trying to encourage people is to think that, like, we're in a republic. Unfortunately, we're in a two-party system. We have to think about sharing power, and we cannot be totally vicious pieces of shit in reference to power, or else we're going to collapse the Republic of the United States. Sorry, I know that was a long-winded first statement, but that's my first statement. The second statement, then I'm gonna make you a promise. So far, I've been able to keep this promise for the past 6 years. When I say something stupid or offensive or ignorant or mean or cruel, I want you to know that it is my earnestly held dog shit opinion, and I am not maneuvering for an advantage. I am truly sharing my dog shit opinion.
Okay.
So I
mean,
won't do what Ryan did, basically, is what I'm saying.
Oh, no, listen, I mean, there's a reason that I would engage with you and have conversations with you, and so would everybody else. I mean, again, just I wanted to bring those clips to your attention since I saw that you were looking at the Raw.
I'll even
thing
watch
from-
the second one momentarily.
Yeah, well, again, all it does is just expose the hypocrisy. That's it. And Pisco brought the receipts, and I thought the receipts were worth noting. And to people who say, well, because you'll watch it and you'll see that Trump quotes are included too. The reason Trump quotes are included is because Ryan has said that he preferred Donald Trump to the Democrats in 2024, even though he didn't vote for Trump, and he still prefers Trump to the Democrats now. Well, the point is, not just you, but your preferred political candidate has explicitly called for locking the opposition party out of power. So again, you have no moral high ground there. I will also tell you that we're doing another core packing debate tonight, and this time it's with I'm blanking on the one guy's name, but the other one is a conservative attorney who's been on Whick panels, but it's not Lactoid.
So it's not because you're
Gen Z
specifically dodging conservative Juris Doctorates in fear of getting blown out. It's that Ryan Mulally was specifically antisocial and Machiavellian and dishonest in the way that he tried to malign your public reputation.
I would have totally been fine with Ryan on that panel. If it had been you and Ryan versus me and Pisco, I would have been fine with that because it would be two educated laymen, you and I, versus two educated attorneys. I think it would have been beautiful symmetry. But I didn't control the fucking roster.
I know.
And
I think
I didn't control the roster. There was
not to defend it.
Yeah.
But I think that you're I appreciate the accessibility that you continue to have with the space, with Twitch and YouTube politics, when you technically have no obligation to do so. But I think there is a perception that you are in rarefied atmosphere. Therefore, you can kind of tell anybody to fuck off at any point and just not interact with the space anymore. So while I appreciate your continued engagement with the space, I do think that there might be a subconscious anxiety or fear that if you, pondering politics, are pressed too hard, you'll simply say, I don't want to do that debate. And you have the clout to do so.
I end up
that was probably
on
a
every Whick
subconscious...
panel. I end up screaming on every Whick, tomfoolery, and other panel I get on. I just don't have the time to do them with any sort of regularity, but particularly over a topic that I'm passionate about, like court packing, I have no problem with those sorts of things. And again, now, in a panel environment too, if I'm up against a lawyer, it's great to have another lawyer on my side because I don't know the fucking law, right? That's why, again, I would have loved, because I think even tonight, the second guy I don't think is a lawyer. He may have said that he's getting his law degree. I'm not familiar with it, but I know one guy is a right-wing lawyer who opposes court packing. So it's a beautiful symmetry. You have a liberal lawyer and a liberal layman versus a conservative lawyer and either another conservative lawyer or conservative layman. But no, other than that, the only person I recommended to that panel was trying to get Brad Palumbo on because Brad Palumbo is a big name conservative who is not a lawyer, but he also opposes court packing. So I thought that would have been cool to have a lawyer, because I was told there would be a lawyer there who opposed court packing, which there was, that guy who, as you know, had the tech issues. And then to have, again, I just think of the symmetry of it, try to make it competitive. I'm a fairly big content creator who's a layman. Brad Palumbo is a very big content creator who's a layman on the other side. I thought it would have been beautiful, but he didn't. He couldn't make it because he'd already had 2 back-to-back panels on court packing, so he wanted to give it a rest.
The explanatory. So for instance, I we've had a relationship for 3-4 years now. So I think I've known you well enough to know that to be the case that I've never known you to dodge difficult conversations, right? So I would have never expected you to dodge a difficult conversation. So I think that's a presumption.
Well, the panel's going to be opened up too. I mean, Whick always now again, I won't talk to Ryan because Ryan lied, but anybody who disagrees with me in this in this community or anywhere else, I mean, the panel is at 8:30 tonight. I don't know how long it's going to last. Hopefully it's not till like 2 a.m. But he's going to open up the panel. And if you disagree, jump on in. And if you want to have a colloquy with me specifically, like you don't want to bitch at Pisco because you have specific disagreements with me, just say, hey, listen, Josiah, while you're here, I disagree with you. Here's why. But no, I mean, it's just that simple. But look, I'm going to hop off here, so I'm going to give you the last word since it is your stream. And anything else you want to?
No.
Anything else you want to say?
There are some people who agree with you who are being very harsh in my chat, and what I would point out, to your face before you dip out, is just that I feel like Ryan Mullally has ended up in the Crucible orbit. I know he still fights the Crucible people, but I think part of the narrative of the Crucible orbit, including Rob Noor and Andrew Wilson, is that the liberals and progressives are afraid to talk to them because they're just so epic fucking debaters. And I think that antagonism reinforces their like tribal community fucking mindset. So I think Ryan might be a little captured by that mindset, which motivated him to criticize you so aggressively without evidence. I don't care if you have grace with him in the future. I think it was a misplay on his part in order to presume maliciousness when he didn't have evidence of it. But obviously, I do want the space to be as rich as possible with as many intelligent people as possible throwing elbows. So maybe if he apologized and stopped being a twat, you guys could talk at some undetermined time in the future. But I also understand your perspective of effectively like, he was bad faith twice. So at this point, if I interact with him, I'm kind of being a fucking dumbass.
I mean, listen, I'm a pretty forgiving guy. So like, an apology goes a long way for me. It would have to be public and not like a, sorry about that, bro. It'd be like, no, hey, I lied. I made claims without any sort of evidence. And despite all the evidence to the contrary, because I sent the texts that Whick and I exchanged about the panel. I sent all of them to Pisco because Pisco was initially having a conversation with Ryan about it when the accusation came down. And so Pisco reviewed everything. And the only name that was mentioned besides Pisco was Destiny and Brad Palumbo. Because I was like, I don't know where Destiny is on court packing, but you may want to try to get him if you want more eyes and clicks on it. If not, I can try to get Brad Palumbo, whom I just had or will be having a conversation with about court packing. But Ryan was never mentioned. Brad. Like he's just full of shit. So he would have to publicly apologize and say, hey, I fucked up. This was a huge mistake. It was bad faith. It was dishonest. I apologize. I'll never do it again. And then once he bends the knee, then maybe we could have a conversation.
Rude, but I understand the spirit with which it was said. But I know you're a busy dude, and you probably have 10,000 things to do, and only so many hours to do it. So I'll let you go. But thanks.
You should,
I'll actually watch the second clip. And
please do. But also I don't know because I don't know your schedule or whatever. But the politics stuff, like feel free to react to whatever shit show happens tonight. I'm sure it'll be a good one. It'll be again. Pisco and
thank you for the content in advance.
Somebody else, 8:30 tonight on Wick's channel. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a great day.
You too.
Let's watch the second clip real quick, just so we feel like we're not sweeping and we're getting like a full picture of the criticisms of Ryan real quick. Now, for me, I'll just tell you straight up. I do think that Ryan is a competent, aggressive enough debater that he adds something. I know there's a lot of like people who really hate Ryan in my chat, but let's be real, y'all motherfuckers hate everybody. So in my ideal world, Ryan would come back and say, yeah, my bad. I accused you of dodging a debate when I didn't have evidence of doing so. So, that was a little unfair. My bad for being a little antisocial. And then if he said, yeah, and then in reference to the Pisco thing, I did try to debate him under false pretenses, but I still not only stand by my intent, I also stand by the fact that I would not have gotten this conversation otherwise. So I'm sorry for the deceptive ways in which I obtained the conversation, but I still think that I am, trying to do something moral in the ultimate. I think that should be sufficient for them to fucking bro hug it out and call it a day and then interact with each other. Because once again, having a constitutional conservative Juris Doctorate who can throw elbows on panels, you guys might not like his argumentation. You guys might not think he's a strong debater. You guys might think he's an immoral piece of shit. But at the same time, having somebody like that who can throw fucking elbows is valuable to the space. So I'm not just looking after, you know, individual bad players making bad moves. I'm also looking at the ecosystem of Twitch and YouTube politics and having a diversity of opinions that are routinely capable of throwing elbows with each other and therefore making compelling content that is worth watching. But anyways, this is only a 20-second clip. Also, this lying MAGA fuck bitches that Pisco Liddy wants to lock the GOP out of power, but has himself publicly repeatedly called for locking Democrats out of power as his preferred political candidate Trump did. Pisco brings the receipts in another kill shot moment. Okay, well, very rude, but let's take a look.
Pisco, what I care about is the fact that your party is tyrannically planning to lock themselves in power and lock the Republicans out of power for generations.
That's not the argument.
Your syllogism means nothing to me. Pisco, what
Okay. And I think logically, obviously, if the syllogism means nothing to him based off of that logic, then by every right, Pisco could simply not care about Ryan's perspective since he wants to lock the Democrats out of power. Do I need to leave the call somehow? I thought I already left the call. Okay, whatever. And then the point is that I want to move into Geopol. So, what I would say is everybody needs to remember the lessons that they were taught when they were children, and therefore they need to be more pro-social. I will remind you that Jordan Peterson, I know some of you guys hate Jordan Peterson, but he just said something that was true, okay? It's not about winning every single game. If you win every single game, you are probably a cheating, morally dubious sack of shit. It's about winning the maximum amount of games over the longest time period. And in order to win the maximum amount of games over the longest time period, you cannot be a Machiavellian, sociopathic, lying sack of shit, because if you are, people will stop playing with you. Right. Michael Hatchtube says, getting invited to the next game is just as important as winning the current game. Correct. And what will happen is if you're a sociopathic fucking piece of shit, people will stop inviting you to the game. So, anyways. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a little bit of an experiment, okay? We're going to do a little content experiment. We don't have a substantial amount of time. We got about an hour left, but I still think that's plenty of time to get into some commentary. So I think that there is a problem. So this guy has 455,000 subscribers. I did not know that this motherfucker was this big. I see that he has 121,000 likes, although I'll remove my like because I don't want to be liking commie gobbledygook. And what Doobie said, Doobie, the nefarious puppet master, said, the guy who's constantly trying to manipulate me into obsessing about raping Steven's career, he said that this is a geopolitical segment narrated from an anti-American imperialist perspective. I think that would be interesting to interact with because, number one, we have geopolitical viewers who are interested in geopolitics as a topic, but they, similar to me, are either Lockheed liberals or neoconservatives who are interested in geopolitics. So I think that analyzing geopolitical content where I just don't go, oh, I agree. Oh, that's an interesting insight. Oh, I never learned that before. But actually arguing it from my American imperialist apologetic perspective against an anti-American lefty who allegedly is well-researched in geopolitics and history could be an interesting lens through which we do geopolitical content. So I'll do a little intro and we'll get it cracking. Now, before I even get the content cracking, I need to tell you what GDF means to me, okay? GDF means Global Defense Force Command and Conquer, And they, the GDI, oh no, Global Defense Initiative. I thought it was GDF. But the GDI, represented by the Eagle, in the Command and Conquer real-time strategy video game series from 20 years ago, are arguably the fucking good guys who basically use conventional military force to fight the Brotherhood of Nod, with the Brotherhood of Nod being jihadist themed, suicide bombing themed, asymmetric warfare themed armed forces. So weirdly enough, I actually like that this motherfucker is named GDF, because not only do I have an extreme affinity for the real-time strategy game Command and Conquer, but I do have an extreme affinity for the GDI. So if I get to look at the acronyms GDF, which reminds me of GDI, which reminds me of Command and Conquer, then basically, not only will that be heartening to me, but I get to criticize a anti-American imperialist Geopol analyzer. Yes, from God to Cain to Seth, I am his right hand. Indeed. Indeed. My culture isn't your costume. It quite literally is. the Brotherhood of Nod LARPing as asymmetric warfare insurgents against the Global Defense Initiative was a huge part of my childhood. So I'm sorry, Ali, but your culture is my consumer video game entertainment. Let's rock on! Thank you for the gifted. So anyways, I'm actually going to start it right here, because why not? A 23-minute video about Iraq from an anti-American geopolitical analyst sounds like an amazing way to spend my time. So I'm going to do this one. Let's thank the last super chatter, and then let's get into the contact. Michael Hatchie with the 5. Power changes quickly in the Brotherhood. True. Very. God, I love fucking the Brotherhood of Nod. Sorry, so obviously Command and Conquer Red Alert, where they redid World War II, where the Russians invaded the United States of America. That was fucking sick. I loved Command and Conquer Red Alert. I loved Command and Conquer Red Alert 2. I thought it was so fun. I thought it was so cool. I thought it was so weird. It was so good. And then Command and Conquer, the classic series, and then Command and Conquer Tiberian Sun was so good. And what is it? So hold on. Hitler's Back, Sieg Heil, opening up to a rock song. We have to appreciate this. Command and Conquer Red Alert 2, Hitler's Back song. Hell March. Oh my God. Command and Conquer Hell March trailer. Was it Command and Conquer? Did they play it for 2? Red Alert 3 exclusive Hell March trailer. Command and Conquer Red Alert Hell March 2. Command and Conquer Hell March 2 Red Alert 2 intro. I think this is it. Let's see if they play the song while doing a sick-ass trailer. Ooh, let's go. Do you know how much, like I get it's like a 30-year-old trailer with mediocre graphics, but do you understand how much of like a military erection I had when I watched that? Rogel Dorn tank twin barrel. Yeah, twin battle cannons. Do you know how bad I want to spend $100 on a Rogel Dorn battle tank with twin battle cannons? Because I just want a World War II aesthetic twin cannoned fucking tank as a result of that trailer. You're saying the Red Alert one. Sorry, we're getting distracted with our attention deficit disorder, but if this isn't tickling your tism, I don't know what to do with for you. Red Alert 1 Hell March trailer. All right, let's take a look. Videos. It's this one, right? Oh, shit, this hits. Oh, my God. All right, I'm going to use the restroom while this plays for you. I'll be right back with the Geopol. Okay, if you want additional of that, I want to start the content because we're running on limited time. But if that music does not make you want to fucking march into Europe, either as a Soviet-aligned partisan fighting the degenerate bourgeois American forces, and or be a fucking American NATO-aligned fucking troop marching through, you know, Western Europe and fucking Germany and Poland in order to fight the fucking Soviet scum, I don't know what to fucking do for you, man. This is like such a brain fucking boner for me. Holy shit. Was that good stuff? Westside Tyler said President Sunday's dipshit commentary. Dipshit community tried to make a hit piece on me and use this as an intro. That's funny. Westside. So just sharing something and being very transparent. Number one, good to see you, fellow Marine brother. Even if you're a lefty, fucking a lefty. Somebody in President Sunday's community contacted me saying, oh, Westside Tyler's trying to gay op you because he thinks that you're fucking lying about your military service and he wants to get a copy of your DD-214. So I don't know if you were targeting me for a gay op or if you were targeting somebody else basically because you thought they had stolen valor bullshit, but I'm just telling you, there was some gay ops in the background where they were trying to tell me that you were going to gay op me. But anyways, I've been yapping for too long. Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement. God damn it. I flubbed it. I flubbed the line. Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name is Connor. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran. I would argue a real Republican, and I'm trying to be a rhino. I'm trying to be a Republican who has honesty, integrity, nuance, and objectives. And what we're actually going to be doing is a geopolitical segment today, as promised to my Geopol watchers, but we're going to be taking a slightly different angle with it. GDF is a content creator with 455,000 subs, and I think a few million views on this video, and 121,000 likes, 3,200,000 likes. That's a huge Huge video. And not only is it huge, but apparently it's a geopolitical analysis and historical analysis from an anti-American lens. So I'm excited to break this down for you. Let's get into it.
On the eve of the American invasion, Saddam Hussein's Iraq suffered little robbery and violent crime. Saddam, after all, was an authoritarian. His police, while brutal, ensured that street crime was almost unheard of. In fact, prior to the invasion, Iraq had a crime rate that was among the lowest in the entire world. That all would change practically overnight. In October of 2002, Saddam, bracing for a U.S. invasion, would empty Iraq's prisons. In what was seen as an attempt to garner support on the international stage and at home, President Saddam officially declared, quote, "All jailed prisoners, detainees, and sentenced fugitives for political reasons are granted a complete, comprehensive, and final amnesty." This ultimately amounted to many thousands of people, mostly political prisoners, but it also included thousands of common criminals, and some of Iraq's most violent.
Okay. I'm going to have a very cynical read on this. I'm going to have a wildly cynical read on this. Sorry. It's about to get a little mean. I will try to be as respectful and tactful as I can. Iraq was a sanctioned nation effectively in complete political isolation except for probably a few holdouts on the international stage. It's my understanding that the French secretly sold them some weapons that we found during the invasion. It's my understanding that some Gulf states were still trading with Iraq in violations of sanctions. But realistically, they were still one of the pariah states of the Middle East and North Africa during the 1990s. Okay? And as a result, I don't know if I would trust Iraqi internal statistics on what the crime rate was inside Iraq. Now, I'll go ahead and concede that oftentimes authoritarian nations are more peaceful and less violent than quote-unquote free nations, but I would actually argue that that's a bad thing. So for instance, China has a wildly low crime rate, and also is considered a wildly peaceful society and a wildly safe society. But it's a wildly peaceful and safe society because if you're a political dissident, you will be incarcerated. They do not need to incarcerate as many people because most people live in abject fear of the government. And before you say, Connor, you're just swallowing American State Department propaganda, when I was in college, I had an American professor and a Chinese professor who was still a citizen of China who came to teach Chinese history in the United States. And what they both said is that they could talk about Chinese history probably up until about 1940, 1950. Because like at that point, it's so far removed historically that criticizing communist actions, you know, between the early 1900s and the 1940s is something that you could do as a historical critic. But effectively, they were not allowed to discuss anything after 1950 because the Cultural Revolution was such a sensitive topic that if you were critical of the Cultural Revolution, like one of your uncles or fucking parents got murdered during the Cultural Revolution, you could still be viewed as an anti-communist dissident and therefore incarcerated in the modern state of China. So effectively, you're allowed to talk about history up until post-World War II, but you cannot talk about history from 1950 to 2026 out of fear of being labeled a fucking dissident. That's horrifying, and it's fucking evil. So sweeping, in my opinion, for that level of authoritarianism is cringe, gay, and lame. Now, I understand that this person also flat out accepted that the reason Saddam Hussein emptied the prisons was because he wanted to make a humanitarian appeal to the international community. But I submit to you the following, is that he knew he was fucked. And he knew, because the American military is coming to kick his ass. He knew he was fucked. He knew the American military was one step away from crossing the fucking border, beating the shit out of his fucking army, deposing him from power. So as a sick and twisted last fuck you to his own country, to the Shia majority in his country, and to the Americans who were about to come in and try to nation build in the country, he emptied the prisons not just of prisoners of conscience and political dissidents, which would have won him maybe some international sympathy, but he also emptied the prisons of the rapists and murderers, knowing that they would wreak havoc inside Iraq and make establishing peace and order that much more difficult. So the fact that we have this utterly fucking sanitized narration of the freeing of prisoners in Iraq is wild to me that it was accepted on its face. So, anyways. Arthur says, is this a Geopol segment I was promised? If yes, I apologize for missing some of it. We just started, basically. And not only did we just start, but we're effectively watching Lefty America bad Geopol, so I can get pissed off about it. Anyways.
Those imprisoned for murder or armed robbery. Thus it was that following the American bombing campaign, all hell broke loose. Public order had evaporated. The so-called shock and awe campaign was so overwhelming that by mid-April, the Iraqi army had ceased to exist. With criminals roaming the streets, carnage ensued. Although, amid the chaos, lines began to blur. With the breakdown of society, common people, moms and dads, became petty criminals themselves. As in the first Gulf War, the aerial campaign had once again targeted water and sewage treatment plants along with the electrical grid that powered them. As a result, even bottled water became scarce. Starvation and disease became a serious danger for the population. Naturally, looting became a form of shopping. The desperate poor, driven by hunger, and criminals, driven by greed, formed gangs that prowled the streets looking for targets. The police had drifted away from their stations to join either the vigilantes or the gangs. Crime became rampant, including homicide. But Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld chose a bare-bones approach, running the Defense Department like something of a corporation, slashing employees and using the bare minimum of troops, hoping to fill the rest via contracts awarded to defense contractors. Among the first fissures in the military was a very public feud between Rumsfeld and Army Chief of Staff General Erich Shinseki. Shinseki thought that Iraq should follow America's so-called Bosnia model, or 1 U.S. troop for every 50 Bosnians. That would amount to 300,000 U.S. troops in Iraq. But Rumsfeld scoffed and allowed less than half that amount, about 130,000 troops. During the Algerian War of Independence...
Hold on. There is a absolutely valid critique here that I am 100% with, which is that Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney, I would have to actually like Google their personal Wikipedias and shit, but they were board members or former employees or golf buddies or whatever with the American contractor KBR. What is it? Kellogg, Brand, and Rutan? What does KBR stand for? Yeah, Kellogg, Brown, and Root is a global science, technology, and engineering company headquartered in Houston, Texas, originally operating as a subsidiary of Halliburton. KBR became an independent, publicly traded company in 2007. KBR primarily operates across two major sectors. Government solutions. KBR is a major contractor for defense, aerospace, and intelligence agencies. The company supports NASA's program, staffs the majority of consoles in NASA's Mission Control Center, and works with various international space and military organizations. Sustainable technology solutions. The company provides engineering, procurement, and construction services for energy, chemical, and industrial clients with a strong focus on sustainability, decarbonization, and energy efficiency. What does Halliburton do? Halliburton is one of the world's largest oil field service companies. It provides products and services to the energy industry, supporting oil and gas exploration, well construction, hydraulic fracturing, and production optimization. Okay. So you basically have like a major oil company that provides logistics support for oil fields. And that's obviously going to be important for nation building in Iraq, which is primarily a petroleum-based company. And then KBR, I think they've omitted in their AI summary, their like nation building shit, but effectively their engineering and construction company side were the people doing the logistics for American forward operating bases inside Iraq. And so I guarantee you, maybe I don't guarantee you, I am strongly opinionated of the fact that Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld were willing to invade Iraq with 130,000 armed military personnel because they knew they would whip the shit out of the Iraqi army. I also bet that they understaffed the army. That way they could make up for the understaffing with private corporations that their former golf buddies could profit from. So I'm 100% okay with that analysis. But what I will point out to you is that Bosnia and Kosovo were not military actions in which we actively were fighting a combatant force for a prolonged period. It was counterinsurgency warfare. And as the Iraq war progressed, we did staff up to 250,000 troops, which was the original estimate that that general had wanted in order to fight counterinsurgency warfare and not just win the armed conflict against the Iraqi army, but ultimately win the peace. So if this gentleman omits the fact that ultimately the Iraqi armed forces were staffed up to counterinsurgent numbers, I would view that as a lie of omission.
The French used over 3 times that many, nearly 500,000 in all, to fight about the same number of insurgents as the US would fight in Iraq. Needless to say, they lost.
This is the neocon behavior that Connor says he enjoys? No, I don't enjoy this. I do not enjoy wars fought in a stupid way. I do enjoy wars fought in a very smart way.
Among the first fissures between American forces and the Iraqis, the breakdown in security. Dr. Faik Amin Batir, who was the head of the city morgue in Baghdad, spoke about the gravity of the situation. Nobody knows when he will be killed, when he will be attacked, when he will be looted. This is the real situation. There are a lot of criminals because of the lack of security, lack of police control. You know, Iraq was controlled by many security systems. Being in control, the lack of security reflects.
Oh, that was a classic right there. Ooh, that was a classic. Hold up. Wait a minute.
A lot of criminals because of the lack of security, lack of police control. You know, Iraq was controlled by many security systems. Being in control...
Oh, man. So, I got flashbanged by this fucking video, okay? And the reason why I got flashbanged by this video, I don't know if it's the same guy, okay? But there was a dude exactly like this in track pants and a fucking, like, a normal t-shirt with a rocket-propelled grenade. And this is a rocket launcher, right? It's a civilian rocket launcher. Let me go. Ooh, Doobie, this was an amazing. I actually really like this a lot. I hope my Geopol nerds are fucking enjoying this, okay? So the RPG-7, the rocket-propelled grenade 7, is a Soviet mass production rocket launcher, but it's called a rocket-propelled grenade for a specific reason. So this rocket tube goes into a very simple and cheap launcher, A primer fucking gets struck. I don't know where. I don't know where the primer is. I'm not a fucking Soviet. And what happens is the rocket fires, flies towards the target, and then it's effectively a impact detonation vehicle. Or explosive, excuse me. We're watching Doobie Slop today? Yeah, but the Doobie Slop is literally anti-American geopolitical analysis of the invasion of Iraq. If this doesn't get you fucking hard, I don't know what does, bro. So anyways, so what happens with the RPG is the contact detonator will strike the target, and then the grenade will detonate. And there are what would you call them? Anti-personnel grenades, and there's anti-tank grenades. Okay? So the anti-personnel are frag, and they explode with fragmentation in order to maim as many people as possible within the immediate vicinity. And then the anti-tank are effectively miniature explosively formed projectiles. Okay? So what happens is when the contact detonation device that I'm pointing to you on screen right now hits the target, an explosion in the rear of the grenade will go off, and then it will force explosives going forward into a copper housing, I guess is the best way to say it. And then the copper housing will liquefy and fire forward at incredible velocity that then pierces the shit out of armor. It's fucking sick. Meaning it's definitionally not impact detonated? Isn't the RPG-7 an anti-tank cumulative charge? No, I thought this was the fucking... Okay. Are RPG-7 rounds impact detonated? I could have sworn they were impact detonated. Yes, the vast majority of RPG-7 rounds are impact detonated using a point-initiating base detonating piezoelectric fuse system. Right? Are there anti-personnel RPG rounds? Yes, many RPG systems feature dedicated anti-personnel rounds designed specifically to destroy enemy troop fortifications and unarmored targets rather than heavily armored vehicles. Are there anti-tank RPG rounds? Yes, anti-tank rounds are the primary ammunition for the RPG. In fact, the Russian acronym RPG, Rushnoi Protovokonoi Granatomiot, translates to handheld anti-tank grenade launcher. Holy shitballs. So anyways, if there's a nuance there, Arthur, that I'm not correcting through my AI summary, my apologies. But let me finally wrap up this fucking yap. Do all Iraqis look the same to you? Kind of. Probably the same way that all white American soldiers look the same to them. So anyways, there's this video of a guy with this exact almost this exact outfit, running out into the middle of the street, lining up an RPG on an American security checkpoint. He gets the rocket off, but then the American security checkpoint hits him with a fucking 240 machine gun. And you're like, Connor, how do you know it's a 240 and not an M4 or M16? And I'll tell you, M240 machine gun is, number one, the fire rate was nasty as shit. It wasn't like the saw where it was like a fucking buzz saw. It was a slow, like chug, 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 chug fire rate. And not only that, I know this is going to be gross, but I also find it amazing. The rounds not only like pierced his torso and chopped him right through, but he fell down to an elbow after he took 2 rounds to the torso. And then a third round hit him in the fucking elbow and effectively snapped his arm in half and flopped the arm backwards. It was fucking nuts. It was one of the craziest, like, to this day, One of the most insane machine gun footage kills I'd ever seen. Just show gore on stream? I can't. You're going to have to go look for that yourself. Doobie for 10 says more evidence that you should turn all critical thought over to me. No, I'm okay. Thank you, though. Appreciate the recommendation. Anyways, we're 4 minutes in, and we've already, in my opinion, challenged 2 or 3 lies of omission or lefty America bad talking points, and also gone over military as shit that I fucking love. Anyways, moving on.
The lack of security reflected poorly on the Americans and was among the first and most important factors undermining their credibility. Among the myriad mistakes made in the lead-up, execution, and aftermath of the invasion, the decision itself to target Iraq, choosing the Iraqi people as a people to pacify and subdue, also proved to be unwise. Never mind the fierce national pride of a people who had kicked out the British and gained independence nearly 70 years earlier, Iraq...
Do you want to mention how they quote-unquote kicked out the British? It's pretty funny. Actually, it's super fucked up. Never mind. It's not funny at all. The Brits, I think it's King Faisal, Hashemite king of Iraq. There were 3 Hashemite kings of Iraq ruled during the existence of the Kingdom of Iraq. King Faisal from 1921 to 1933, the founding monarch of the Hashemite Kingdom of Iraq. He was previously declared king of Syria in 1920 and played a key role in the Great Arab Revolt alongside his father. King Ghazi, the only son of Faisal I, he succeeded his father following his death in 1933. He died in a car accident in 39. King Faisal II, the son of King Ghazi, he was the last king of Iraq. He ascended to the throne at age 4, initially under the regency of his uncle, Crown Prince Abdullah. Faisal II reigned until he was overthrown and killed during the 14th July Revolution of 1958, which established the Iraqi Republic. So, this is the this is the Brits doing what they were asked to do. You know how everybody talks about Sykes-Picot? Where they're like, Sykes-Picot drew arbitrary lines around a series of polities that never had interacted before and therefore were likely to fight. And then they appointed a ruler that nobody recognized. And yet, the fucking territory of Iraq was specifically drawn around ancient Babylon and the territories that made most sense to logistically support the Babylonian core. And then it also included a Hashemite. In a Hashemite definition, a Hashemite is a member of an Arab dynastic family that traces its lineage back to Hashim ibn Albin Manaf, the great-grandfather of the Prophet Muhammad. So they picked specifically a dynastic ruler who be recognized by all people in the region previously under Ottoman control. So this whole blame game of the Brits and the French drew arbitrary lines and appointed unpopular leaders who didn't have a historical claim to the territory is fucking horseshit within the context of Iraq. So put that in your fucking talking point pipe and fucking smoke it. Anyways, moving on, because I am loving this so far.
Iraq was also historically a hardy agricultural society. Another way of putting that would be, they were heavily armed. We tell the Americans, we are prepared for them, says Abdul Amir Nasir al-Abadi. My grandfather has a gun from 1895, and I'm going to use it to kill American soldiers. I'm keeping this gun in my hand. I also have...
Why is Doobie being on Nult's not shady as fuck? Because fucking Fellrunner fucking nuked his ass. Okay? Grassroots hegemon, I love him dearly, and he needs to do whatever the fuck he needs to do. He needs to take care of himself. But Grassroots hegemon has arguably been my largest oiler for a year. He's a great guy. Love him. Conservatarian, libertarian dude. Don't want to pressure him to do anything. He can return to the community when he feels fucking good and ready. Which means that everybody else has to step up with the fucking money. Doobie, everybody else has stepped up with the money, to be clear. But Doobie is a fucking somebody who gives money. He's not ban evading. Fellrunner fucking nuked him. I never wanted him to be nuked in the fucking first place. Ban his ass again? We're doing G. Never mind. Never mind. I'm being greedy. I'm being greedy. I should stop being greedy. No. Okay. How's that for an answer? If you can't Doobie is a gray. If you want Doobie to be a gray name, that way you can mute him and you don't have to pay attention to what he says besides super chats. You can do that. But if you are so fucking soft that you cannot tolerate him being in your physical presence, I think that's soft as baby shit. Okay? Just so we're clear about where we're both at right now.
Have a pistol and a Russian Kalashnikov. All Iraqis have these. Indeed, Iraq was one of the most heavily armed societies in the world. And on a per capita basis, Iraq's gun ownership rivaled other clan-based societies like those of Yemen and Somalia, where virtually everyone is armed. But those corroded rifles and pistols passed down along generations were the least of the Americans' problems. Along with emptying prisons, Saddam also made life difficult for the Americans by dumping small collections of weapons and explosives among the Iraqi population, and distributing.
Okay. I heard you. I disagree with you. Stop your fucking pussy aching. Oh my fucking God. There's a guy in chat I don't like. Okay. Get a real fucking problem. Okay? Aren't you a Russian dissident? Don't you have fucking, like, I don't know, isn't your entire government actively trying to kill you? Aren't you fucking Ukrainian? Isn't the Russian government actually trying to fucking kill you? Worry about that. Okay?
Distributed rifles, but some weapons dumps were massive, the size of small cities. There were also the Iraqi military arsenals just ripe for the picking. With the army effectively non-existent and a lack of US troops to guard these depots, Iraqis began breaking into them. The result was that Iraq, which was already a heavily armed society, became overflowing with weaponry. Estimates put the number at up to 1 million metric tons. There is more ammunition in Iraq than any place I've ever been in my life, and it is all not securable.
What do I want you to do? I want you to enjoy the Geopol content. Quit your pussy aching and focus on the fact that we're watching a video about the fall of Iraq and the civil war that ensued. And let's focus on the fall of Iraq and the civil war that ensued. Okay? Diminished Darknut says kisses $20. Diminished Darknut, I'm just going to say again, since you're a man, I cannot reciprocate your kisses. I am in a committed relationship with a heterosexual female. She might be bi. I don't know. I've never asked. But anyways, I'm in a committed relationship, and I'm 99% heterosexual. So I will not be able to reciprocate your kisses, but I do appreciate your donation. Fashion40 for the $2 says thanks for the Geopol. You're welcome. Let's focus on it.
These weapons would be sold or simply passed out for free to friends and family. Now, almost every Iraqi had a Kalashnikov or other variant, and many had machine guns and RPGs. For example, the American Congress and subsequently the public would not be informed until the end of October of 2004, more than 18 months after the war began, that a cache of over 380 tons of artillery shells, plastic explosives, mortar rounds, TNT, and other powerful conventional explosives was cleaned out by looters. This storage site, which was just 30 miles from Baghdad, was left unguarded by the US military. This was certainly an error that would come to haunt them.
Did the American fucking military goddamn know about it? What's the implication here, fuckface? If the American military knew about it, they probably would have fucking guarded it, don't you think? Considering we spent the next fucking 5 years destroying weapons caches, don't you think it would have been nice for us to know that there were 300,000 fucking tons of AKs, plastic explosives, and artillery shells? There was nobody to talk to. We invaded their fucking country. No Iraqi army guy was like, hey, I'm an Iraqi army guy. I'm going to help you find all the munitions so you can secure them so my neighbors don't have artillery shells that they're going to use as explosives. Fuck that. The Iraqi army were the people who fucking stole the goddamn artillery shells in order to take them home. Like, I get it. Like what? You wanted us to map out the munition sites before we invaded? Okay, yeah, sure. Are we going to get all of them? Absolutely fucking not. Who is this? Who is this? Oh my God. Oh, it's Diminished Darknet again. He says, platonic kisses. Just kissing the homies goodnight. Okay. That's not gay.
Though Rumsfeld's DoD failed to emulate the so-called Bosnia model in sheer numbers of troops, they adopted another Bosnia-era policy which would come to uniquely define the American occupation. Known as DAB, or Driving Around Bosnia, U.S. forces would adopt patrols as a routine daily exercise. It was thought that the presence of soldiers on the ground would bring an air of security to cities and populated areas. But these ground operations also brought troops door to door, conducting constant raids on Iraqi homes. Otherwise known as cordon and sweep operations, the cavalier and often cruel nature of these raids became another major point of contention among the Iraqis. These sweeps were indiscriminate, nabbing so-called military-age males, which included young teens and children, up to adult or even older men. These men, without any due process, were hauled off to American military prisons, including the notorious Abu Ghraib prison, the Saddam-era torture chamber, which was reopened by the Americans, who even reinstituted the old prison warden from the Saddam era. Just that alone, of course, along with the ensuing torture scandal, was yet another rage-inducing insensitivity which made many Iraqis ready to take up arms.
Why do military folks love acronyms so much? Because you need to communicate quickly. So if you say, grab the 249 and, get on that ridge, that's better than saying, grab the medium machine gun, right? 249 is faster. And I know that's not an acronym. That's just like a designation. But at the same time, like BAMSIS, SMEAC, JJ did tide buckle. It allows dumb fucks like myself to memorize complex concepts and be able to articulate complex concepts while remembering the simple acronym. So it's a really good way to treat incredibly stupid people, incredibly complex concepts quickly. Make them memorize the words of a complex concept so they can at least articulate the subcomponents of a complex concept. That way they can get the vibe of a complex concept so they can execute a complex concept. Nameless Henchman says, computer generate Geopol segments based entirely around examining the politics of large-breasted redheads. That was the morning segment. Did you miss it?
Iraq was a socially conservative society and placed great importance on not only national, but also personal and family dignity. Iraq's social norms of honor and privacy, especially for women and girls, was thoroughly violated by strange foreign men busting down doors and violently arresting the head of the household, the vast majority of the time without any evidence of wrongdoing whatsoever.
We would, in 2003 and early 2004, collect up huge numbers of Iraqis and put them in Abu Ghraib. The number eventually grew to over 13,000. Probably 99% of those people were guilty of absolutely nothing, but the way we treated them, the way we abused them, turned them against the effort in Iraq forever.
An independent report sanctioned by the Defense Department would conclude that they reverted to rounding up any and all suspicious-looking persons, all too often including women and children. As many as 120,000 Iraqis would be detained. John Bruns of 3rd Brigade, 1st Armored Division, 1st Battalion, took part in around 1,000 Iraqi home raids.
This is descriptively true. Okay? I actually have no objection to it because this was something that the early grunts bitched about. It's not that they didn't like going on raids, getting into firefights, fucking fighting people, all that kind of shit. They loved all that shit. What they didn't love was effectively the dog shit intelligence that led them to raiding endless amounts of people, detaining endless amounts of people, those people being sent to a prison where they were oftentimes radicalized against coalition forces, released back into the population, and then them becoming insurgents after they had been initially detained. As we got more interpreters, as we understood the lay of the land, as we understood the geography, as we understood the culture, this system obviously improved over time. But you're effectively talking about culture shock on top of armed conflict. And so, like, there was plenty of culture shock between American forces and Vietnamese people. There was plenty of culture shock between Americans and German people, even though they were considered like cousins. There was culture shock between Americans and Japanese. Like, so on one hand, I think this is descriptively true that there were not enough interpreters. Some of those interpreters were pieces of shit. The military operations were way too broad. You were effectively trying to execute scalpel-style missions with a sledgehammer. And we were just not, primarily during the invasion, prepared for the level of nuance required in counterinsurgency warfare. So.
Summarizes a typical Iraqi home raid as follows, quote, "You grab the man of the house, you rip him out of bed in front of his wife, you put him up against the wall, then you go into a room and you tear the room to shreds. So you've just humiliated this man in front of his entire family and terrorized his entire family, and you've destroyed his home. And then you go right next door and you do the same thing in 100 homes. Now, next week, 10 roadside bombs go off, and nobody can understand why." According to Colonel Thomas Hams, the Marine expert on counterinsurgency who worked for the American occupation, many of the arrests were done with a boot on the head in front of his woman. You've created a blood debt when you do that. Perhaps the single most devastating move for the American occupation was the outright firing of roughly 500,000 Iraqi state workers at the drop of a hat. On May 16th and May 23rd, the occupation's leader, Paul Bremer III, would issue CPA Orders No. 1 and 2, respectively. CPA stands for the Coalition Provisional Authority, the name given to the American occupation. These orders were known collectively as de-Baathification and went a long way toward fueling the growing resistance.
Okay, this is a popular narrative, and I'm okay with saying that the State Department was not ready for the nation-building mission, and there is a shocking statement from the general who was in overall command of the Iraq invasion. So the general who was in overall command General Tommy Franks allegedly was in a meeting with W. Rumsfeld, Cheney, and the State Department and said, the military has no fucking problems invading Iraq and then, destroying the Iraqi army. But if you are looking to win the peace, you need to talk to the State Department. And that is such a woefully fucking ignorant statement of the way that human nature works. I've obviously shared this concept with you guys a few times, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what this guy said was, if you want to win the social integrity of Iraq, if you want to win Iraqis going back to work and pursuing ego goals, and if you want to win the physiological goals of food, water, and shelter, then don't worry about the security tier of, this. We'll handle that. But we'll only handle that insofar as we're going to smash the Iraqi army. We will annihilate the Iraqi army and we will kill any insurgents that resist us. But if you want Iraqis to fulfill Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to talk exclusively to the State Department. That is a wildly shitty quote. And the reason why I think it's wildly shitty is because if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's quite clear that the security tier of hierarchy of needs is necessary in order for complex social interactions and complex economic interactions to occur. So, General Tommy Franks, he's more than welcome. You know, I don't even know if he's still alive, but I would love to hear his explanation of that entire fucking, that entire conversation. And then I would also like to hear, so this is Paul Bremer, or whatever this guy's name is. I fucking forget. Maybe I just said the wrong one. But he was saying that his memorandum disbanding the Iraqi army, Iraqi security forces, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, was a formality at that point because the Iraqi army and Iraqi civil service had all gone home and effectively were riding out the chaotic storm. So him writing that memorandum did not create the storm. Him writing that memorandum was an acknowledgement of the storm and the desire to recreate Iraqi civil society from scratch. And by the way, if you guys are like, oh, you didn't have a plan on how to build Iraqi civil society from scratch, you need to understand that Iraq was an ethno-religious supremacist society in its entirety. The Sunni, the ethno-religious minority, was prioritized over the Shia, who are representative of like 60% of the population. So when you say, do we really need to start Iraqi civil society from scratch, considering they've had these like robust security apparatuses and robust civil services for decades? Yeah, unless you want to perpetuate a Sunni ethno-religious supremacist authoritarian society, yes, you need to start Iraqi civil service from scratch. So, sorry, I am a huge fan of this essay so far, just because I think that it's contending with actually serious topics, but I think there is a whole host of information that's missing from this analysis.
Order number 1 fired anyone who worked in the top 3 management layers of all government ministries, state-owned industries, universities, even hospitals. These employees were deemed
because it was a Sunni, ethno-religious, supremacist society, and so they wanted to get rid of the top 3 management layers that enforced a Sunni, ethno-religious, supremacist society. Obviously.
Automatically to be senior Ba'ath Party members, and they would be banned from future employment in the Iraqi government. This was controversial even within U.S. circles. For instance, the CIA chief of station in Iraq was gravely worried that, by nightfall, you'll have driven 30,000 to 50,000 Ba'athists underground. And in 6 months, you'll really regret doing this. In fact, the number would be as high as 85,000 people, just fired outright. Order number 2 fired the entire Iraqi armed forces and the Interior Ministry, which included the National Police. Together, these 2 orders would put out of work over 500,000 people. Marine Colonel Thomas...
But Connor, did we help replace it? Absolutely. Absolutely. I almost guarantee you, if you check out the CPA, the Iraqi Coalition Provisional Authority or whatever, I almost guarantee you there's 100% a document that says, this is how we're going to reform Iraqi civil service. This is how we're going to rebuild the Iraqi army and Iraqi national police. So basically, like, yeah, you got fired, but you could reapply for your job if you weren't a piece of shit. You know? So once again, I feel like this is a... I am with the CIA guy, and I'm with the general critique that firing 85,000 civil servants is going to drive them into the arms of the insurgency. But once again, you know, I They literally were creating the new Iraqi army as Iraq was falling. They were creating the new Iraqi national police as Iraq was falling. Yeah, B for Brian actually calls something out that I think is important. Now it's a Shia supremacist state. I know. But wouldn't it have been better if they had adopted American ideals about ethno-religious supremacy and had simply said, if you're a Kurd, you could be a cool guy. We'll work together. If you're a Sunni, you could be a cool guy. We'll work together. You're Shia, you could be cool. Let's work together. Wouldn't it be better if Iraq had forgotten its ethno-religious bigotries and had simply created a collaborative mosaic of a society? I think it's ideal. It's silly. Like, it's too idealistic. It's way too ideal. But at the same time, wouldn't that have been good? Anyways, sorry. I love this content so far.
Ham summarized the move like this. Now you have a couple 100,000 people who are armed because they took their weapons home with them, who know how to use the weapons, who have no future, and who have a reason to be angry at you. When Bremer did that, the insurgency went crazy. May was the turning point. According to an official U.S. Army study of the war, just over a day into the invasion, on March 22nd, quote, expecting a positive reception, Sergeant First Class Anthony Broadhead led a hunter-killer team of 3 Bradleys and 2 M1 tanks toward the bridge, where some Iraqis had assembled. As his tank approached the bridge, Broadhead waved at the Iraqis, but rather than waving back, the Iraqis responded with AK-47 fire. The fight quickly escalated as paramilitary forces engaged from pickup trucks armed with small arms, machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, and mortars. The study maintains that this was a significant event since, for the first time, but not the last time, well-armed paramilitary forces, indistinguishable except for their weapons from civilians, attacked the squadron. A week later saw the first suicide bombing against coalition forces since the war began. A taxicab laden with explosives would kill 4 U.S. soldiers of the 3rd Infantry Division in the city of Najaf. By midsummer, the lid on the burgeoning Iraqi resistance had blown off, and bombings became rampant and regular. The Iraqi resistance sought to target not only Americans, but also their allies and partners. August proved to be an important month. On the 7th...
Wait a minute. Let's, I could go to IraqiBodyCountProject.org or whatever the fuck, but you guys can just go to IBCProject.org. And once again, lefty lie of omission. Oh, the Iraqi insurgency targeted coalition forces and targeted people working with Iraqi coalition forces. 100% descriptively true. Absolutely descriptively true. I have no problem with that statement. What was 80 to 90% of their targets? 80 to 90% of their targets were rival militias. The United States military was effectively a backdrop. We were a third-party participant in a civil war between Shia jihadist militias and Sunni jihadist militias. They killed us as an afterthought. They killed each other as a primary mission. And some of this shit was so fucking brutal. You think like a taxi cab laden with explosives with a suicide bomber driver killing 4 Americans is bad? That's a nice day in Iraq. That's a chill day in Iraq. The bad day in Iraq is the local fucking Iraqi police chief who is secretly a member of a Shia militia that massacres fucking Sunni civilians. Him and his entire family are fucking shot to death, chopped into pieces, and thrown into the ditch outside their home. That's, more common than suicide bombings against coalition forces. And I think it is of note that like 80 to 90% of the fucking casualties in the Iraq conflict were Shia and Sunni jihadist militias massacring each other and civilians.
A bomb-filled van parked outside the embassy of Jordan. The blast threw a nearby car onto a roof. In the rubble were 17 dead. But among the most momentous and successful attacks, fighters targeted the Canal Hotel, which housed the offices of the United Nations. Driving a cement truck filled with explosive artillery shells, a suicide bomber crashed into the outer wall of the hotel, sending a shockwave so powerful that it blasted the windows of the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment a half-mile away.
Yeah, dude, seriously, like, imagine you're just, like, chilling inside a building, having a conversation, and then the entire building just fucking evaporates. That's how powerful some of these explosions are. So just to give you guys an example, I have, I told you, my ex-stepfather-in-law ran a 2-year men's recovery center where drug addicts and alcoholics have the capacity to get gainful employment, remain sober, and be in a community of men who are trying to remain sober and take their faith seriously. One of the guys' names is Aaron, and he was a survivor of the Beirut, Lebanon bombing. And what he said was that he was walking into his barracks room in the barracks in Lebanon. He was on like the 3rd or 4th story. And then what happened was he was walking towards the wall that was about to detonate. He heard and saw the shockwave coming towards him. He effectively saw the concrete wall in front of him turn into powder because of the power of the explosion. And then he lost consciousness. And then he was in and out of consciousness for the next 12 hours as he sat in the rubble of the barracks until eventually he was recovered and taken to a hospital. But he still has a vivid memory of walking into a 3rd or 4th story building, watching a concrete wall pulverize into dust, and then a shockwave so powerful punch him in the fucking chest, head, and body that he lost consciousness. Imagine being that person. Shit, imagine being that person, and that's your last conscious experience before you're punched into the fucking hereafter. It's fucking bananas. It is truly wild shit. And if that sounds like wild shit to you just as a like descriptive experience, imagine how wild it is to actually experience it and either die or survive. Because that was my world. I was hanging out with people who had survived similar incidents to that.
The attack killed 23 people, including the chief UN officer in Iraq. The effects of the bombing were dramatic. The UN mission in Iraq drew its staff down from 800 international staffers to just 15.
I need to use the restroom again because I've been pounding water. But I fucking love this shit, and I hope you do too. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage your chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. It is currently 2:30 on deck. We are going to finish this video.
Colonel Thomas Hams described the fallout in a report for the National Defense University. Quote, "The August 19, 2003 bombing of the UN headquarters in Iraq convinced the organization that continuing to operate in Iraq would be too costly. In the following weeks, numerous other international organizations, including the IMF and the World Bank, would pull out of Iraq, which was seen as a massive victory for the resistance. That was a brilliant campaign. They hit the UN, the Red Cross, the Jordanian embassy, and the Iraqi police. And we were calling them dead-enders. Who do you think is disorganized at that point?" The Muslim holy month of Ramadan would commence at the end of October of 2003. This was the first time since the invasion that the foe turned fully on US forces. On the 26th, a mortar attack on a Baghdad police station killed Private First Class Rachel Bosveld. Then, a flurry of rockets were fired at the Rashid Hotel, which housed the CPA offices within the US Green Zone. The next day, 4 police stations were bombed simultaneously throughout Baghdad, using truck bombs painted to look like police vehicles and filled with over 1,000 pounds of plastic explosive. These attacks marked the beginning of what is now known as the Ramadan Offensive, and it would bring the highest rate of American fatality since the start of the invasion. Attacks would become far more sophisticated during Ramadan, and the number of them would increase sharply. To compare, during the summer of 2003, there were roughly 15 attacks on U.S. soldiers a day.
Soapbox says, Connor, it happened recently to one of our boys and a British soldier. A drone took them out. They're in a building chilling, and then boom. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, dude. Yeah, it's the IEDs is the IEDs were terrifying in Iraq because you would be driving down the roadway and then a random piece of trash would explode and fucking flip your vehicle, or it would, if the explosion was underneath you, it would crush you into the roof of your own vehicle, killing you almost instantly. So IEDs were actually fucking terrifying, as were sniper attacks. So, because with sniper attacks, since you're wearing body armor, you know, they do tend to shoot center mass. So there's plenty of people who got hit in sappies and survived, but there's also plenty of people who got hit in the head or neck and they did not survive because the weapons that the insurgents were using at the time, Dragunov, were effectively designated marksman rifles. They were semi-automatic rifles that fired 7.62 by 54. And, dude, these things, like, they punch through fucking soft armor like it's nothing. They punch through fucking helmet plate like it's nothing. A sappy plate can stop them, but you have to get hit square in the sappy plate or else you're fucked. So, yeah, it's pretty fucking bad. And then somebody's saying the IEDs fly now. Yeah. I got flashbanged by the Star Wars thing where they had like the First Order troopers like fly in a jetpack, and then fucking like Poe Dameron is like, they can fly now? Or fucking Finn's like, they can fly now? And he's like, they can fly now. And it was kind of like a fucking, you know, Avengers ass fucking line. Now imagine like a, you know, a fucking IED going off, and then and then imagine watching FPV drone footage and having Poe Dameron and Finn screaming, they can fly now. What's a sappy plate? What does sappy stand for military? So sappy is a small arms protective insert. I had e-sappies where they were enhanced small arms protective inserts. And so sappy plates are oftentimes ceramic, but they do have metal ones now that are very heavy but very cheap. But they're plates that you put into your body armor so you can defend against rifle caliber threats. So a interceptor body armor. This soft armor is like weaved Kevlar, and it's pretty light, and truth be told, without plates, it's pretty comfortable. And so oftentimes when you do boots and utilities, physical training with body armor on, you will do it without plates in because you don't want to break the plates when you're in training. But this is actually pretty comfortable. But the problem with interceptor vests or body armor vests without plates is that Kevlar only stops 9mm and 12 gauge. And not all the time will it stop 9mm and 12 gauge. So to put this in perspective, 9mm Beretta pistol, this is what it will stop. Okay, it'll stop a pistol. And then for a 12 gauge, which is not common in Iraq, a 12 gauge when it fires buckshot, it basically fires 9mm bullets at one time. So if you're wearing an interceptor vest, by itself, it will stop 9 pellets of buckshot. And you'll probably survive. You'll just have a huge fucking bruise on your chest. But in order to... SVD rifle. But in order to defend against this rifle, you have to have a SAPI plate. Because the bullet is so large and so powerful and so fast that it will rip through your soft armor like fucking tissue paper. Like, you might as well, if you get hit with a 7.62x54R round, you might as well not even be wearing the Kevlar. It will go through your body armor like fucking wet tissue paper. It is truly psychotic.
By mid-November, that number jumped to 45 a day. And it was also at this time that Iraqis became adept at attacking aircraft. In October and November, they managed to shoot down 3 helicopters, including a Black Hawk helicopter killing 6 soldiers and a Chinook helicopter killing 16 soldiers. Helicopters now frequently had to fly back due to guerrillas firing at them. On November 15th, 2 Black Hawks collided into one another while trying to evade rifle fire, killing 17 soldiers. The Army even had to conclude that the Apache helicopter was so vulnerable to rocket and machine gun fire that it would no longer have a major role in attacks.
Okay. Hold up. Wait a minute. Helicopters are the motorcycles of the sky. So anytime you get into a fucking helicopter, you might as well bend over and kiss your fucking ass goodbye. Because there's like a 1 in 1,000 chance that you're going to be fucking killed just by virtue of getting into a helicopter. However, a lot of them are very soft-skinned. They have like aluminum and magnesium hulls. And so they are incredibly vulnerable to ground fire. But I will say, Apaches, while still vulnerable, are known for their resilience. So absolutely, a rocket-propelled grenade could fuck up an Apache. And I think they even did during the Battle of Najaf. And absolutely, cumulative small arms fire could take out a patrolling Apache. But it would take a lot. And there are plenty of Apache crews who swear by the resilience of their platform that they were effectively able to get into gunfights with Iraqi insurgents who were raking them with AK-74 or AK-47 fire and fucking SVD fire and RPK fire. And they were able to stay airborne, rape the people on the ground with 20mm chain gun fire and Hellfire missiles. And then, they could still make it back to base, even if they had been absolutely pelted with machine gun fire. But yes, a direct hit with an RPG will fuck you up. Absolutely. Old School for 5 says, Mel Brooks spent World War II in Europe defusing German IEDs. To this day, he can't use a toilet without checking the tank for a grenade first. Nice. I didn't know Mel Brooks was a World War II hero. That's cool. That's a cool part of his lore. That's awesome.
The Iraqis were learning and adapting quickly, using what they had at their disposal. But they would kill many, many American soldiers through a simple device that littered many roads frequented by American Humvees and personnel carriers throughout the country. The IED.
Yep, IEDs and EFPs, absolutely.
Which stands for Improvised Explosive Device, is one of the key hallmarks of the war in Iraq. Its simplicity is both a symbol of the disproportionate firepower that the Americans wielded, as well as the cleverness of the Iraqi resistance to use all manner of essentially scraps of electronics and weapons to fashion devices that proved to be especially lethal to occupation forces. So lethal, in fact, that in the first year of the Iraqi guerrilla war against the Americans, 1/3 of dead U.S. troops were killed by these low-tech and inexpensive roadside bombs. And they weren't just good at killing American soldiers, but also wounding them. 2/3 of soldiers wounded so badly that they needed to be evacuated from Iraq were hit by IEDs. Aside from the human cost, the monetary cost was staggering. In 2006, the Pentagon set up an office to deal with the threat of IEDs called the Joint IED Defeat Organization. By 2011, the yearly budget was $2.8 billion.
Dude, so I was in 07. I was a part of the MRAP rollout, Mine-Resistant Ambush-Protected Vehicle rollout, MRAP Iraq. And not only did the MRAP, it's raised off of the ground. It has a V-shaped hull in order to direct explosives to either side of the vehicle. The wheels and the engine compartment are designed to shear off of the vehicle if they get hit with an explosive. And then the crew compartment is designed to be almost completely fucking separate. And as a result, it increased crew survivability like 1,000-fold. And not only did we have MRAPs and fucking Buffaloes, this is the one that I worked on. Not only did we have MRAPs and fucking Buffaloes that were rolling out to Iraq like a motherfucker, but on top of that, they had jammers on them. And we had one jammer for radios, and we had one jammer for cell phones. So effectively what ended up happening was we reduced Iraqi insurgent capacity to hurt and kill American soldiers and Marines, but it was a wildly expensive venture to do so. And then we also limited their capacity to use radio-controlled and cell phone-controlled explosives. And we forced them to use command explosives. Effectively, they would have to be like within sightline of the IEDs that they were setting off in order to set them off, which increased the chances of them getting caught, which was pretty fucking cool. Remember the modified Chinook they used to try to take to the aliens or talk to the aliens in Independence Day 4? I don't think it was a Chinook. I think it was like a Skyhook helicopter, but I do remember that. Old school for $5 is... Oh, that's the one I already read. Yes, thank you for your donations, Kings. I don't think that was a Chinook. That was a... it was like a Sky Crane.
And that's not counting the roughly $45 billion spent on mine-resistant vehicles. All to fight a bomb that cost roughly $30 to make. Indeed, IEDs were very crude. All one had to do was put a detonator on a bomb or artillery shell, and you've essentially made one. In the summer of 2003, nearly all IEDs were hardwired.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but I understand that he's just trying to say that any fucking dipshit could do it. Weren't MRAPs known as Grizzlies and MATVs as Huskies? I actually don't know, to be honest. We just called the MRAPs, and then we had the Buffaloes, and the Buffaloes were the specific EOD MRAPs. So, for instance, MRAP code name. MRAP itself did not have a single classified military code name. However, the initial design was HEV, Hardened Engineering Vehicle. When the U.S. Army chose the U.S. Marine Corps initial program, the overarching was the JERV, Joint EOD Rapid Response Vehicle. The Cougar! I think we called them Cougars. I think I remember Cougars. But apparently Cougars, Caymans, Max Pros or some. And then what did you say? Grizzly? Grizzly MRAP. So this looks like a specific design for Blackwater. That's interesting. And then you said a MATV Husky. Here's the Husky, which is the newer version that is more Humvee than it is MRAP. That's super interesting. And then the MRAP Buffalo, this was the one that was specifically for EOD. So I showed you some MRAP vehicles earlier, but basically when we were rolling these out into Iraq, I was a part of the logistics, accounting, supply chain to get these out. We probably ran these, the Cougars. We probably had like 99 Cougars for every Buffalo. And the Buffalo looks more like a Puma, to be honest. Nice. But the Buffaloes were EOD specific, in my experience, at least in my unit.
meaning they were connected directly to the detonator. A fighter would have to hold the detonator, which was connected by a long wire to the explosive. In this instance, US forces were able to locate the wire, then follow it until they found the fighter on the other end and liquidated.
See? See? I'm not making shit up. This was my world for a while. And this guy basically said exactly what I said 30 seconds after I said it. I fucking love it. This is not that bad. From a descriptive perspective, I feel like there's some like lefty lies of omission, but actually from actually capturing the essence of armed conflict, this is a pretty goddamn good essay. I do not hate this guy. I am okay with this guy. I think his quote unquote lies of omission that I've accused him of are not only explicable maybe by his political affiliation, I also think they're explicable by ignorance. Not everybody knows casualty distributions in the Iraq armed conflict by perpetrator as documented by the Iraq Body Count Project. Not everybody is going to be aware of Paul Bremer's statement that his memorandum was a formality over a geopolitical reality or a national level reality that he was trying to grapple with. Not everybody is going to know that the memorandum likely also included the reestablishment of the Iraqi army and Iraqi national police along a ethno-religiously egalitarian mandate. So, you know, I would like to shit on this guy as a filthy, communist, anti-American propagandist, but truth be told, if you had to ask me like what I think he's correct about, I would seriously say he's probably 80% correct about everything that he said. It's pretty good. It's pretty fucking good.
Them. But then, guerrillas figured out how to detonate these devices remotely, using RC car controllers, car alarm transmitters.
Yeah, son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. When you do command det, once we started killing the people who did command det, then they hooked up the cell phone to the command det position and then started using cell phones again, which limited the range that our radio and cell phone jammers were fucking effective to. It was really interesting seeing the cat and mouse game played by insurgents and played by coalition forces in real time. Like truly, like, if you wonder why I'm still like an American military industrial complex fucking apologist, it's because I literally saw the military industrial complex in a dueling cat and mouse game with Iraqi insurgents. And the technologies that they developed over the beginning of the Iraq conflict to the end of the Iraq conflict was it was generational. Like multi-generational technological development. It was fucking crazy pants.
Transmitters, and especially cell phones. The people who detonated these bombs, also known as triggermen, were the frontline troops of the resistance, and the cell phone became one of the most important tools in their arsenal. IED explosions would reportedly be videotaped by attackers in order to improve their techniques and use the footage for propaganda and recruitment purposes.
Yep.
Though the US spent billions outfitting Humvees with armor to resist IED explosions, the Iraqis again adapted their ways and began placing IEDs in tree branches and light poles. Since armor plates were placed on doors, the blast would be downward facing in order to blow windows in, and also to hit the machine gunners poking out on top of the vehicles.
Yup.
We got better armor, they started getting better ordnance, said Colonel Bob Chase of the 2nd Marine Division.
Yep.
Chase was commenting on an IED attack near Haditha, which killed 14 Marines with a single...
Look how fucking big this explosion is, man. I know I'm fucking yapping out and I'm fucking nerding out on this, but I really want you to look at how big this fucking explosion is. Because they take fucking plastic explosive, stack it on top of plastic explosives, stack it on top of plastic explosives. They will fill a commercial truck with plastic explosive and effectively annihilate a city block. God damn, was this fucking scary as shit. Take a look at this. If you have the capacity to pull your cell phone out of your pocket and take a look at your screen, I want you to look at the scale of the vehicles and trees in the background versus the scale of the explosion caused by whatever the fucking bomb this was. Take a look at this.
Since armor plates were placed on doors, the blast would be downward facing in order to blow windows in, and also to hit the machine gunners poking out on top of the vehicles. We got better armor, they started getting better ordnance, said Colonel Bob Chase of the 2nd Marine Division. Chase was commenting on an IED attack near Haditha, which killed 14...
Look at this shit, bro. Once again, it's only like 3 or 4 frames. He didn't give us very much to look at. But look at the scale. So this looks like it was obviously a vehicle-borne IED or a truck parked on the roadside in order to take out a fucking Humvee. And the truck, look at the truck compared to the initial explosion. I'm going to move forward 1 frame. 1 frame. If this is shot 30 frames per second, then that means that this explosion is 1/30th of a second. Okay? 1/30th of a second. And effectively, an explosion the size of maybe 20 or 30 vehicles evaporates what is basically a fucking city block. You cannot defend against this. The only way you defend against this is in the aggregate. You can exhaust their munition supply, you can raid caches, you can kill insurgents, but there is no way to totally defend against this kind of warfare. That is one of the things that I really try to explain to Americans who say, oh, you can't fight the American government. They have F-15s. Yes, the fuck you can, because some of these explosions are made by like a military-grade plastic explosive taken from stockpiles from the military. Some of this shit is homemade explosives from fertilizer. So yes, there's no way the American military can defend against every single threat. They have to accept at some point that they will be taking some form of casualties. In particularly with the advent of FPV drones and also large-scale one-way attack drones, I think the game's gotten even fucking crazier. Like you thought Iraq was crazy, the game has gotten even fucking crazier.
14 Marines with a single explosion, hitting an amphibious assault vehicle. This was at the time a new development in IED technology, called the underbelly bomb, detonated from deep inside the ground and blasting vehicles from underneath. These bombs were also massive, able to utterly destroy a Humvee or even a tank.
The reason why these were so fucking terrifying, man, because I saw these videos when they came out, is because an MRAP could direct an underbelly bomb, I think is what he described it as, to either side. They could direct the force to either side. And we had crew compartments of vehicles lifted 10 to 20 feet off of the air by an underbelly bomb, lift it 10 to 20 feet in the air, have it crash back down on the ground, and all of the Marines in the MRAP would survive, but they would have severe tinnitus, severe CTE, basically a TBI, like a fucking traumatic brain injury. They would have a severe TBI, they would have severe fucking tinnitus, and their tailbones would often be bruised or subluxated by their 20-foot flight into the air and then landing back on the ground. And so compared to 14 dead Marines, that was actually like a huge technological improvement. But with these underbelly bombs, the up-armored Humvee was such that the tops and sides were armored. And so what would happen is that you could only put so much armor plating on the bottom. And the armored plating would get shot into the roof of the Humvee, effectively making, I know I said effectively a lot today, but that's okay. What they would do is, have you seen those hydraulic press videos? Hydraulic press video. So, what would happen with American Marines and soldiers is they would be hydraulically pressed by a steel plate into the roof of their own vehicles by high explosives. Now, the good news, because I'm going to play this again because it's so fucking graphic. Now, the good news about that is that it's probably close to an instantaneous death. But if you think about it for 30 seconds, it's actually terrifying. So, imagine getting hydraulically pressed into the roof of an armored vehicle within a 30th of a second. Fucking wild.
Just 100 pounds of explosives detonated under an armored vehicle was the equivalent of a direct hit from a 6-gun artillery battery. Yet even a single 155mm artillery round containing just 18 pounds of explosives could easily destroy a tank on its own. That's just a damn difficult thing to defeat. IEDs were so effective that attacks increased steadily. In the year 2005, an IED attack occurred every 48 minutes, twice the rate of the year before. By the fall, there were 1,800 of these bombings a month. And the distribution of these IEDs was also sending another message to the occupation. Since they were so widely distributed on roads throughout the country, this could only mean that they were unreported by local Iraqis. A major blow to morale for U.S. forces, who of course went into Iraq thinking they'd be welcomed as liberators.
I don't think anybody really believed that shit. I think Donald Rumsfeld said that shit in a press conference. I don't think Americans believe that. I don't think the average American soldier, I don't think the average American Marine, I don't think they thought that shit for a fucking second. Okay? And it made it so we could start doing counter IED digging operations. So, Marshallus says, unban me from Discord. You gonna be a cunt? Because if you're a cunt, I'm not gonna unban you at all. As a matter of fact, where's your fucking please and thank you, you son of a bitch? You think I'm gonna fucking unban me from Discord? No. How about you said, did your parents not teach you any fucking manners? How about you say, could you unban me from Discord, comma, please, question mark? Write that and I'll fucking think about it. So anyways, the point being that one of my friends got training as a designated marksman using an M110 sniper system. And he got a fucking night vision, please and thank you, you son of a gun. Nope, type out the sentence or it's not going to happen. Literally, may you please unban me from Discord. And then fucking tell Fellrunner, at Fellrunner in the chat, and tell him your fucking handle. Okay? Could you please unban me from Discord? I am a fellow Marine, please. There we go. All right, excellent. Thank you, Marshallist. I appreciate you. JJ did tie buckle, okay? One of those T's is tacked. Type in your handle so Fellrunner can unban you. So anyways, my friend with this rifle dick shot somebody who was digging an IED emplacement. I'm going to tell you again. I could tell you a 5 to 10 minute story about the time that he dick shot a teenager who was digging an IED, but I think that I can save us all 5 minutes by just telling you that. My friend sat out on an Iraqi street with a fucking thermal or night vision scope, saw somebody digging an IED in the middle of the night. The guy was bent over, so he shot him in his ass, and the bullet, 308 bullet, went through his fucking hip, buttocks, and front, and snapped off half of his penis. And so he was embarrassed when he was telling me the story. He was embarrassed that he had shot a guy and he had lived because he felt like he did his job poorly as a sniper. He should have clearly shot him in the asshole so the round went into his torso and then he would have died. But what I told him, which we both laughed so fucking hard, we could be sick. We're probably sick fucks. But anyways, what I told him, which I thought was funny as fuck, was that there was a dude with a fucking limp in Iraq who is probably 30 or 40 now. He is probably our age. There is a guy in Iraq walking around with a fucking limp and half a penis because my friend shot him in the fucking dick tip. I think that is fucking crazy and kind of funny. So, yes, like one of those sniper elite fucking shots. Yeah, exactly. Except for it snaps off the tip of your dick with a 30 caliber bullet.
The violence was detrimental to the coalition early on. Along with the UN, World Bank, Oxfam, and the IMF all pulling out, other countries' militaries also found Iraq ultimately uninhabitable. Spain would leave in May 2004, then Honduras, the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, the Philippines, Hungary. The next year, the Netherlands, Ukraine, also Poland, Bulgaria, and Italy, probably the three most important European allies in Iraq, would announce their plans to get the fuck out of Dodge. In the end, a $30 bomb was enough to kill probably half of the US war dead, and the resistance was so overwhelming against such an awesome occupying force that it should indeed be studied in insurgency and revolutionary circles for many years to come. The quagmire in Iraq was doomed from the start. American arrogance, poor planning, free market brain rot allowing for the contracting of vitally important jobs to defense contractors who literally do not give a shit about anything but their bottom line, along with other blunders, created something of a perfect storm in Iraq. Due to the hopeless corporate reliance on war profiteering, the lessons of the Iraq War are always important to ponder. It was Michael Ledeen of the American Enterprise Institute who said, quote, "Every 10 years or so, the United States needs to pick up some crappy little country and throw it against the wall just to show the world we mean business." For those watching, maybe that country will be yours. Throughout the year 2023, the 20th anniversary of the Second Iraq War, I'll be covering stories related to the invasion. And if you want to support me and get a glimpse of behind-the-scenes action, or join my Discord server, or watch my too graphic for YouTube Abu Ghraib documentary, check the link in the description or go to patreon.com/GDFofficial to become a patron. It's a great community over there, and we'd love to have you.
That was fucking sick. Thanks, Doobie. I need that. I need a relatively sane, anti-American imperial video essayist covering actual fucking armed conflict, the developments of technology, and diplomatic developments within the nation. Dude, I would watch one about Kosovo. I would watch, 5 of them about Vietnam. I would watch one about fucking World War II or Korea or Iraq, Afghanistan, any of that shit. That was fucking dope. That was dope. I literally descriptively agreed with 80% of the shit uttered. I think that there was, quote unquote, lies of omission, which might not even be lies. They could be explained by ignorance. I felt like he wasn't unintelligent, and I thought that he did an excellent chronologizing of the Iraq conflict. So honestly, that was fucking sick. Huge fan. Huge fucking fan. So, the dick got split like when you microwave a hot dog? Holy shit, I hope not. I've heard of adult circumcision, but that's ridiculous. True. Sounds like something God would say, Rob. True. Connor, watching this thinking he'd disagree with it, but he noticed along with the whole thing. No, it was a great video. It was a great video. Literally, the only things that I could criticize of it is either being ignorant or omitting the nature of casualties in the Iraq conflict. And then additionally, what would be another thing? Maybe kind of like ending the video on a sour note in 2007 instead of, kind of taking a look at Iraqi diplomatic and military developments since ISIS. But I also understand that you can't fit, 20 years of history of armed conflict into a single video. So if he continued with the diplomatic and military fallout after the pullout of America, if he covered the Arab awakening or the Sunni awakening, then if he covered the American withdrawal in 2011, then if he covered the rise of ISIS and the European terrorist attacks, then if he covered the destruction of ISIS, and then he did a current narrative on where Iraq is today, that would be fucking sick. I would love his analysis on all the chronology that I just outlined just now. Holy shitballs. Connor, will you read DMs? Here's a video, The Math of War, and it's from this movie. Yes, I love this movie. I love this movie. I think it's a little
Let's
stereotypical.
say you have 10 insurgents. Huh? Now let's say you have 10 insurgents.
Okay, yeah, I feel like this is like really stereotypical and shitty towards the United States military, but it is funny. It is funny. Like this is War Machine with Brad Pitt, and I actually loved it. So hold on, let's watch it.
Let's say you have 10 insurgents. Huh? Now let's say you kill 2 of them. How many insurgents do you have left? Well, you'd say 8, of course. 8, right? Wrong. In this scenario, 10 minus 2 equals 20. Let's say the 2 insurgents you just killed each had 6 friends or brothers or some such who are hovering on the brink of joining the insurgency. They're thinking about this insurgency thing. Looks interesting, but for one reason or other, not for me. But then you go and kill their friend. Now you just made up their minds for them. Those hovering friends are now full, paid-up members of the enemy. And so, in the math of counterinsurgency, 10 minus 2
equals 20. Dude, it is, okay. It's an oversimplification of the nature of counterinsurgent warfare. 100% a oversimplification, and also kind of like a vilification of the overly simplistic military mindset of the United States. But there's an element of truth in there, and I kind of like it. So I am on 400 more milligrams of caffeine today. You need to chill the fuck out, bro Beans. That is way too much. Have you listened to Blowback at all? No, I haven't. I'm unfamiliar. Is it a podcast? Is it a documentary series? Is it a movie? What is it? Pill to avoid liquid? True. The caffeine pills add up. Lol. Yeah, dude, slow down. You should be not exceeding 200 milligrams of fucking caffeine per day. Freedom math, you can't prove it mathematically, so it's wrong. Okay. I heard his character was based on 2 different CENTCOM commanders. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. 100%. Like, there are some good old boys who have made it to the upper echelons of Army brass. But with the good old boys, underestimating them to be like ignoramus douchebag idiots is a mistake. They are oftentimes wildly educated, wildly intelligent, wildly well-read, vicious fucking see you next Tuesdays. So you need to be a little bit careful when you're portraying American military brass as like ignorant fucking knuckle-dragging buffoons. They are oftentimes not. They can be ignorant of some aspects of reality or sociology or whatever that leads them to making very, very, very dumb mistakes, but stereotyping them as completely ignorant of world history, diplomacy, soft power, hard power, geopolitics, logistics, anything like that is a woeful mischaracterization of who these people actually are. So, anyways, I had a blast. I hope you did too. I actually, Patriarch and Arthur, I hope you enjoyed it. I know that typically we would watch like a William Spaniel or whatever that Stewart's guy name is. We would normally just watch like a dry autistic person talk about a current event or whatever. But that for me was more fun because not only was it a retrospective on a historical event that I participated in, but it's something that could be harshly criticized with the benefit of retrospect. And then not only that, there are actual facts in contention. And not only that, there's wildly interesting developments of military technology throughout the Iraq conflict. So, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I do, because Lord knows I fucking loved it. So, yeah. Blowback is a podcast. The first season is on the Iraq War, similar ideological stance to the video you just watched, but it's well researched. Okay, that's cool. That's very cool. But anyways, I'm a little bit late. It's 3:11. My new ball and chain, my new old lady is coming over in 45 minutes. I want to go eat some food before she comes over. I might want to clean up a little bit. And I also need to shoot some videos, some pre-recorded videos. I need to shoot my Warhammer videos. So, Parasocial, love you. Thank you for hanging out. Let me go ahead and thank everybody who donated as well. Because I think we did get some oil along with a healthy chunk of chips. So, Michael Hatchtube, Old School, Nameless Henchman, Diminished Darknut with 20 bucks, Fashion 40, Diminished Darknut with 20 bucks, Symposium Brain with 10, Michael Hatchtube with 5, Azraka with the Gifted, Tag Op with 10, Rifleman with 2, Pondering Politics with 10, Pondering Politics with 20, Mira Doll with 20 DKK, Rifleman with 2, Rifleman with 2, Symposium with 10, Real Serious with 100 Argentinian pesos, Old School with 5, Michael Hatchtube with 5, Real Serious with 100 Argentinian, Symposium Brain with 10, that's Doobie, Doobie with 10, Rifleman with 2, Envoy Snark with the membership, Hippopotaman YouTube with a membership, Doobie, Rifleman, Doobie, Fashion 40, Real Serious, Rifleman. Thank you, kings and queens. I hope you had a good day. It was pretty fun. I had a good day. So, wash your ass. Indeed, wash your penis, okay? Wash your penis. Eat a vegetable 1 time a week. Go outside for 10 minutes per week. Talk to a human being in real life for 30 seconds a week. You know? Be good.